start, and then I need to share it everywhere real quick, just so that way we get people watching.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just making sure. Okay, and then gotta post it to Facebook.
Might be about an hour more than landfall than that, but I mean that could be okay.
Mm-hmm. I think it's gonna make landfall either at 06 Zulu or 05 Zulu.
Mm-hmm.
If it needs to be extended or shortened, we can do that.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, just sharing it, and if you guys have any questions, you can leave them in the chat, and we will work together to answer it. Okay, gotta post it. You're just sharing it everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And we will get started in about a minute.
Okay, I just want to make a note here.
Yep.
I'm currently making a fix right now. I am going with 155 knots, 895.
Wow, okay. 895?
And that may be too high, but that's what I'm going with for now.
All right.
It may be 890, but that's what I'm going. I'm going 895. I mean, we have proof that it was 895. No. Well, listen, the buoy recorded 900 millibars with 29 knot winds, and the NHC says that every 10 knots is a millibar.
Oh,
so that
true,
technically,
yeah.
So that's 898 right there, and it probably was a little off peak by the time that happened, and it probably rose to 915 at the highest, at the absolute highest. It because you got to realize it maintained the WMGI throughout the whole replacement cycle, which is
very solid Eyewall replacement cycle.
That's not something that I've seen before, except in Mencook.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just letting you know. 150 knot.
Yeah, thank you. I am currently joined by Riley and Sharkius, so be sure to say hi to them in the chat. They will be helping me through it, as well as Odin and possibly Tuna. So we have some members now to help us. It's not in the middle, or it's not completely in the AM hours for us, so we're able to do this coverage. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat and we will answer. Firstly, I'd like to go over this cone right here. Riley, do you think that this is a pretty accurate track of where it's expected to go?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good expectation because as of right now, we're seeing it for the most part follow the expected track and maybe a little bit of a southward jog. Obviously, there can be jogs in either direction, but as of right now, it seems like this is the general consensus of the models and what we're seeing in the trends in the track over the last several hours is with the jogs, if anything, have been a little bit to the south, and that's what the model guidance is in agreement with the track you're showing. If anything, it could end up being a slightly more south than that, but I think overall it's a pretty good forecast for now.
All right, and I believe that if it makes more of a southward jog, that would be good for areas like Hong Kong and Guangdong province, because it gives it more time to weaken, right?
Yeah, but it's more so that they would be further away from what is, I mean, at this point, an extremely large and powerful typhoon. It's expected to weaken, and I do believe that it will weaken. Even though the upper level conditions remain favorable, the size of this thing in the shallow waters of the South China Sea is not going to be a good combo, so you can expect some repelling. So the further they are away from that center is going to be good because the surge threat with this is immense due to the large size of this, even with it weakening after this incredible peak here that we're likely to see soon.
Yes. But yeah, especially though along southern Guangdong province right over here, the later it makes that landfall, the more time it has to weaken. So would you say Category 3 landfall seems about right?
Yeah, that's what I would be forecasting for now as well, although there is a possibility it can be anywhere from a Cat 2 to a Cat 4. I'm kind of leaning on the lower range just because with as large as this system is, even though it's super intense, at some point or another, when it starts to weaken, it expels all that energy out, and that creates upwelling ahead of the storm. Like a Conray situation that we had last year, it was upwelling a day ahead of its track. And that buoy that we had has already shown that where it passed to, the SSTs have cooled to 26.5 degrees
Oh,
Celsius.
wow. I didn't know about that.
Because this storm is so large, it's going to upwell ahead of time, and that's why it's going to be weakening, even though it's moving at a substantial, or not a substantial, at a
But pretty
sustainable
quickly,
rate.
yeah.
So otherwise, if it was a smaller storm, then it would likely maintain a lot of its intensity. But, this is a double-edged sword here. And in this case, you could say it's worse because that makes the surge threat so much more worse for that area of China and
Yes.
Vietnam as well. And not only that, but with the larger wind field, large area, most of Hong Kong is probably going to see 50-knot winds for
Yes.
maybe a day.
If they could see moderate to major impacts, I'd say.
Yes.
It all depends, though, as well on where the center goes, but regardless, they should see at least tropical storm force winds out of this, even if it stays on the very southern end of this track, because of how large the system is.
Mm-hmm.
And what about rainfall? How big of a concern do you think that is?
Well, rainfall is always a concern. This is one of the rare storms where the immediate effects in the Philippines is the wind, but later down it is the rainfall and the storm surge, because you're going to have a lot of areas of Guangdong, even though that it's going to be passing south there, it's going to be jumping, several inches of rain per day for several days over some of these areas. So there's definitely going to be some flooding concerns, possibly even a little bit more inland than what you have indicated. Yes. But at this given time, I think that's a good expectation.
Yep. And could it reemerge in the Gulf of Tonkin as a typhoon?
I think it's likely because while being so large will help bring it down in a way because of the upwelling, it'll also make it more resilient to when it does pass over that peninsula. So it likely won't weaken as much passing over that peninsula because it's pretty flat and it's a large system. So there's a possibility it could still be a typhoon when it gets in the Gulf of Tonkin, and therefore when it arrives in its final landfall in Vietnam.
Yes. Also, I want to point out, though, that some people might be wondering, why is there a possibility of major impacts for eastern Taiwan? That is going to be a majority of rainfall, and you want to explain why that's going to happen? Why the coast of Taiwan gets so high rainfall rates?
A lot of things with Taiwan are a mystery, but we do know some things. And that is that those high peaks of Taiwan and the way that it is, it almost does something to a storm circulation where it makes the winds and the rains funnel in a different way than it normally would, because it's just, the island is so elevated that it's always had that effect where it does something to it, storm circulation, and they get stuff in return. And so I think that's an explanation as to why there would be so much. It's just because of how it's being, that onshore flow right there, it is conducive for the outer bands to produce storms within the outflow, and that's allowing a lot of rain to occur over Taiwan because of that topographic lift.
Exactly. And there were some pretty scary rainfall totals here on some of these models. Let me see if I can pull them up. I don't know if this is... it's almost loaded there. Yes, this is the JMA model here, and this is over the next 2 days or so. Some of these showing over 1,000 millimeters of rain. For inches, that's around 38 inches of rain. And some of these peaks, up to 40 inches in some areas.
Yeah, and whenever you're having those kinds of rainfall totals, you're obviously going to have major flooding concerns. And Taiwan is pretty well built to handle the weather issues that it gets thrown at its way for being where it's located, the typhoon-prone area that it is. But even then, when you're talking about several feet of rain, anytime you're talking about that, you're usually talking about a lot of problems as a result.
Yes. Now, I would like to show the satellite imagery on this storm, and just showing how large of a system it is and its eye. Would you say that this is larger than most storms you've tracked in the Western Pacific?
I would say it is. I've tracked some large eye storms in the Western Pacific and in other basins as well that have become Category 5. But the immense size of this storm and the intensity, because usually when you have an eye of this size, it's not often a storm and an eye this large that you are well into Category 5 territory and under potentially 900 millibars, as the observations from earlier would suggest that we certainly are again.
Yes.
So basically, this is really, I can't compare it to anything. Usually, when a storm's developing, you're like, it reminds me of this or that. This has kind of separated itself. It's kind of gotten to its own bar here. You could say maybe it's starting to look like a Vong Fong a little bit, but it's a lot larger than Vong Fong was. This is getting into uncharted territory, I guess you could say is the word to use. Nothing I can compare it to, and I've tracked a lot of storms in the Western Pacific.
Yes.
And, this one's building its own legacy as we speak.
Yep. And in this imagery here, we can see some of those bands reaching the coast of Taiwan there. It's a pretty expansive storm, like you said, so it's impacting parts of central Luzon. Now, even though the center's well to the north of those areas, and including Manila, some of those outer bands are beginning to impact those areas. We can also see the southwesterly monsoon starting to approach the central Philippines. But yeah, you can just see how expansive the bands are reaching the Sekishima Islands of Japan here. Even some of the outflow beginning to reach parts of China up there. But yeah, pretty expansive storm, and you can see the size difference between the islands and the storm itself. About to enter in that eye, how long do you think it would be until it makes a landfall?
Well, I think we are around 4 to 5 hours out. There's a possibility that at this time that you may see it skirt slightly to the south, but if it does happen, they're still going to get the worst of this, right? They're still going to be in that radius of maximum winds where you likely have wind gusts of 200 miles an hour. And that is unsurvivable unless you are in a well-built structure. Hopefully, any people that are still on any of these islands right here, especially Haiyan and Babunyan Island, really have to be hunkered down in the best structure available on those islands, because it almost reminds me of Dorian in a way where you're watching this thing coming into these islands and there's nothing anybody can do. The people that are on the island, tracking it, just knowing what's going to happen to these islands is, hurts for those people. So hopefully they are in a well-structured building and able to survive this, because at this point, all they can do is walk out of there with their life. And hopefully that's what they do.
Yes, and we won't really know what's going to happen to those islands until probably the next day or beyond that. Just because it's a large system, so they're gonna continue to get impacts over the next 24 hours or so. So the communications will likely be down for a while.
And the large size of this system too, they're already experiencing. I guarantee you, they're already experiencing winds well into the typhoon force, probably even major typhoon force here pretty soon, just because of how large this system is. And that's going to continue after the eye passes by. You got the backside coming too. So they're going to be dealing with very hazardous conditions for several hours here. This isn't, a 1 or 2 hour event. This is going to be a nearly 12 or more hour event for them. And then even when the conditions begin to subside, you're still going to have storm force winds for probably another day. You're going to have rainfall for another day or two. And then after all that subsides, you're going to have most likely no power and no communications at all on these islands. And even though the Philippines are well typhoon equipped because they are the Cat 5 capital of the world, you can still never be prepared for something of this magnitude. You can never prepare for it.
Yes. Here's a look at the most recent HAFS, a model run on the system, showing in purple are the typhoon force winds, and this is estimated at around 8 o'clock here. You can see typhoon force winds already occurring for those eastern Babuan Islands, and those major typhoon force winds starting to approach. It looks like this model run is a little bit slower than where it's located at right now. Comparing the center, it is located right there, and if I pull it up here, it looks like the center may be a little bit more to the west, so you could push those to a little bit farther more to the west, meaning they are creeping in on those major typhoon force winds, like you mentioned earlier. And if we go forward in time, this would be 11 o'clock entering in that eye, meaning between, or like over the next 3 hours, they're going to get hit by those major typhoon force winds in Babuin Island. And then for like an additional 3 hours or so, do you think that they could be in the eye for 3 hours? Is that possible?
I mean, with an eye this large, I mean, it's almost like I want to be in that eye, but you don't want to be because you know what comes around that eye
Yes.
wall is so ferocious. But they could spend indeed several hours within the eye. Me, when
Yes.
I spent time in the eye of a tropical cyclone, it was Hurricane Irma, 2017.
Hmm.
It lasted for about 30 to 40 minutes before you begin to feel the conditions really get, from the backside. So it's a possibility that for them, it's 2 or 3 times as long. They could be in the eye for 2 or 3 hours. And that's just because how large this eye is. This eye is 50, 60 miles wide. This is a massive eye. And to hold this kind of intensity with this kind of an eye, the amount of energy, the amount of pure energy that is in this system is enough to power the world for several months.
Yes. We can take a look at how large the eye is on here, 45 miles plus. And if we
I
go
was
to the
close.
whole
I was close.
stadium's over 66 miles wide there.
That's
Um,
a whole degree wide.
wow. And the island there's only about 6 miles across. I mean, it's tiny compared to the
Looking at
eye.
that, looking at that imagery, it's kind of hard to say that, you know, major typhoon force winds are not occurring there now. They likely are because they are about to break into the maximum winds pretty soon. So it's getting real on those islands. You know, anybody that's there, they've got to be hunkered down, and they've got to be hunkered down right now in the most sturdiest building that they can find.
Yes. And it's really best just to stay hunkered down. Don't venture out.
No,
But where would you say the strongest winds are? Would you say they're here, or would you say they're in here or here? Where would you say they
well,
are?
they would be at the surface level. They would be at the bottom
Hmm.
because with height, you're seeing the winds increase with height usually. So at the higher levels, that would be where the first line and the middle levels and so on and so forth. So, but you see the size of the RMW of this because of the size of the eye wall is wider than usual because the eye is larger than usual. So with that being said, I think we can expect the maximum winds, the radius of maximum winds to hit this island probably within an hour.
Yes. If we look at the past hour of where it's gone, it was roughly right around there. And if we look at the distance it's traveled in an hour, roughly around 15 miles an hour, and it is roughly around the center of the storm's roughly around 60 miles or less. So that'd be around 4 hours or so from getting in the eye, just under that. And if we look at the edge of the eye there, around 30 miles away, and if we look at probably even closer there, probably within the next hour or two, getting in on the worst conditions of this typhoon. What about the other islands here? Do you think that they're going to get into the eye as well?
I think so, especially Calayan right there,
This
because
is that this
you know
one?
it. Yeah, it's been taking a little bit of a jog, if anything, a tad south. So I think at this point they've got just as good, maybe even a little bit better shot of getting right in that eye, just like Bunyan does. And either way, there's no way at this point they're avoiding the maximum winds, and that right there is going to do some significant damage.
Yes.
Sorry to barge in
Hmm.
here. I just checked in the last couple of frames here. It looks to be moving due east now, right towards the
You mean west?
Caroline Island.
Due west, you mean?
Sorry,
It's all
due
good.
west. My fault. But due west, right towards the Caroline Island now. So they're probably going to get directly in the center of that eye now. It just looks like it's heading directly towards it now. It just took a little western jog.
Even this island, the westernmost island of the Babuin Islands, do you know what name that is, Riley?
What's that?
Do you know the name of it?
Not off the top of my head. Let me take a
I'll
quick
check.
look.
I'll check.
All
Give me a
right.
second. I'm on
Okay.
it.
The westernmost. I
Westernmost
got it.
Babuin Island.
Yeah, it's the
Dolly
Delapuri Island.
hmm
Delapuri Island.
I mean,
Yeah,
the eye's large enough that if it continues moving due west, all three of them could enter at least the edge of the eye.
correct.
Could we see two of
Especially,
the islands in the eye at the same time?
especially Haiyan. They may get, if there's a station on that island, it's going to get a sub 900 millibar reading. I'm going to just tell you that right now. If there's a station on that island right there, it's going to record a pressure under 900, possibly even under 890.
All right. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Do we know if there's any stations on there? I haven't
think
been
there
able
is.
to find any.
There should be a Ragasa station. It's an uninhabited island, though, so I'm not quite sure. Some of these uninhabited islands only update every 3 hours or so, it would have to catch it basically when it goes through, which I mean would need a lot of luck. But
Yes.
I mean, it is a big eye, so we've got more things working for us than we usually would have.
Yes, I mean, like we were discussing earlier, it could be in the eye for 3 hours. So, I mean, the chances that if there is a station there, the chances of it actually capturing a pressure in the eye is pretty high. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, looking at a higher resolution visible imagery here, you can see this is the stadium effect, right? You want to explain what that is?
Yeah, so the stadium effect is, and you can see it on the infrared too. It's basically like a bowl. It makes the eye like a bowl where it's wider at the top than it is at the bottom. And the reason this occurs is because as the storm gets strong enough, it does this to conserve its angular momentum. And that's why you see at the bottom right here, that Chase is circled, you see the eye being smaller than you do at the top. And that goes inwards as it slopes down with height. And this is not one of the most extreme stadium effects, but a stadium effect usually indicates very good outflow, exhaust from the storm, because you're efficiently evacuating heat through the center, which therefore results in pressure falls. And what you're seeing here is a successful system that was able to do so, and that's why it is sporting a pretty impressive stadium effect at the moment, which usually is a sign of a pretty intense system.
Yes. And I'm curious what it would look like if those people who are on the ground there, if they actually are able to see it. It'd be pretty photogenic, right? Or do you think that the cirrus debris will block it? Or like
I think what you're seeing is pretty normal for large eyes. Those are mesovortices. Those are mostly lower level clouds.
Yeah.
You would basically see the sky, like, you know, that picture that Jim Eds had of Dorian. That's probably what it would be like, except it would be a little bit larger of an eye.
Yeah.
Or actually a lot larger of an eye.
Yes.
That's actually twice the size. The eye's twice the size, actually. It's hard at first when you look at it until you look at the grids on satellite and realize, wow, it's a whole degree wide.
Yes. Just huge storm.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about that oceanic heat content, or at least the tropical cyclone heat potential here. Explain what's that helping to do compared to sea surface temperatures alone.
Right. So sea surface temperature is just the water temperature at the surface. Tropical cyclone heat potential is the heat at depth, at 100 meters, 200 meters, whatever it may be. That shows how much heat is beneath the surface. And why that is important is because storms, as they strengthen, they basically take the water out of the ocean. They use the energy up, and their winds churn up the colder waters from beneath. And with large, really intense Category 5 like we're dealing with right now, that is taken to a higher level. And this storm is so large and so powerful that it's nearly using all of the energy at its disposal. And there's an incredible amount of energy there, and it's taken every bit of it to create what we have now. There's not very many other places on the planet that would be able to support a storm as strong and as large as this at the same time. And when you get oceanic heat content units that decrease below a sufficient amount, you run into issues with sustaining convection because you're being robbed of that heat that you need for the latent heat flux to continue the deep convection. And as we move into the South China Sea, as he's going to show you on this model run here, you're going to see that it begins to show more of its cold wake. And the reason that is because, as I explained earlier, not only is this cooling the waters almost a day ahead of time, but the South China Sea is not particularly deep. It's an area that is pretty shallow for the most part. And where it's going to be passing along its track is mostly around 200 meters deep, which is not deep at all for a very large and intense, powerful storm like
How deep
Ragasa.
would you say it is now? Like
Now the waters are probably over a mile deep.
Wow.
At least, if not 2 miles deep. And where it was at when it had its first peak, it was probably 3 miles deep there. But you see, another thing too is it's not like we're entering an untouched South China Sea. Up until this point, the Western Pacific Main Development Region has been very inactive. It's been struggling in the Main Development Region to produce even storms out there. Now, obviously we had a traditional development here, and it took well advantage of the untapped potential in those waters, but now it's entering shallower waters that are basically pretty used. As you're seeing right here, you're seeing a lot of activity has been in that area this year.
Yes.
And some storms have been some big ones like Weipa, Kajiki. They've taken some heat out of these waters. So along with it cooling the waters ahead of where it gets there, it's already, the waters are depleted. So you're going to eventually see this begin to run into issues where there's not enough tropical cyclone heat potential to support the intensity and size that it's at. And as a result, it will begin to weaken.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be a rapid weakening thing, because we're still going to have a pretty favorable upper level environment. We do have some increasing shear coming from the east, but we are moving to the west here. So that kind of helps offset that a little bit. Good news is that at some point or another, I think we are going to trend towards another eyewall replacement cycle, which will definitely not complete given how large it'll be.
Yes.
And obviously we're entering the lower heat potential waters. And when that happens, then you're going to see that steady terminal weakening trend begin.
And I want you to explain more about why would the upper level environment still be favorable. Explain on here. How is it still favorable? And how would you know?
Well, so how we know is we are looking at the 200 millibar winds, and this is the upper level winds. This determines the outflow and the shear level and the effect that has on the storm. As you see in this, you see the streamlines pointing away from the storm, and the north and the south. What that indicates there is that indicates the dual outflow channel remains in place. And that is a powerful mechanism. A dual outflow channel is a very powerful mechanism, almost always results in a storm becoming pretty strong. Obviously, since the ocean is declining beneath what it needs, it's going to weaken. But with that kind of upper level support, this weakening is not going to be quick. It's going to be rather slow as a result. And this is going to be one of the strongest storms on record that we know of approaching this close to Hong Kong, besides Ramasun 2014. But that was further west, and it was a lot. I mean, not a lot, but it was smaller by a decent margin than what this was.
Yes. So hopefully it's going to continue moving, trending more to the south, so it misses Hong Kong directly. Otherwise, that could be devastating for those areas.
Well, you see, the hurricane models are actually showing a very bad scenario.
Yes.
A lot of these are showing a direct hit on Hong Kong at Category 4. I don't think that'll happen, but even a direct hit on Hong Kong of anything of this magnitude would produce so much surge that it would be unimaginable. The good thing is that the reliable track guidance, for the most part, keeps it south of there. So I think that Hong Kong will be spared the worst of the surge and the winds and all that, but they still need to be prepared for having several meters of surge potentially going up in the bay, just because of how large this system is, and possibly, like I said, getting larger due to another eyewall replacement and expanding the wind field as the energy expands out.
Yes. And how do you know that it's, or how would you know that it's likely going to undergo another eyewall replacement cycle?
Well, when you have a storm that is under 900 millibars, it's not only likely, but we're seeing some signs on the radar. There's a moat region beginning to develop, and we're seeing an outer band as well on parts of the microwave imagery. I think it's going to be, it's going to take some time before it initiates, especially with how intense and large and symmetrical of a main eye wall that we have here, it's going to take some time for that banding to coalesce and take over. But, honestly, with as large as it would be, I'm not sure it would complete if it was near Guam.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to a point where it's so large that there's almost no energy and time that can overcome it. And it's progressively going to get larger every single eyewall replacement cycle that it goes through.
Similar to Congray, right?
Yes. And at this point, we are approaching size levels of Congray. But when you put into an energy perspective, we are by far surpassed Congray because we are 20 millibars, if not 30 millibars deeper than Congray was. So from a pure energy perspective, this is probably the most energetic storm that I can think of tracking in the modern day. And perhaps, who knows, I mean, maybe even, I guarantee you it would be almost hold as much overall energy as Typhoon Tip.
Yeah.
Even though it's not as strong as Typhoon Tip, it's not at 870 millibars. But
Yes.
it likely, due to the size, even though Tip was larger, you have to realize that it reached its largest size well after its peak intensity.
Yeah.
So if you compare this right here, which is likely nearing peak intensity, to Tip at its peak intensity, there's a possibility this has just as much, if not more energy.
Wow.
Overall energy, even if not as strong because of the immense size.
Yeah, this is incredibly impressive. Tip was a long time ago. That was 1979, I believe, right?
Correct, and that's when they had full-time recon in the Western Pacific, which we unfortunately don't have now.
Yes. Let's see. So here's the moats that you were talking about, correct? Right in here?
Right. If you pull up the latest microwave imagery, you'll be able to see this. It's showing it on the northern side, too, and you're getting some banding and coalescing on the southern side. I'm seeing this on the Ragasa radar. I'm seeing a moat region starting to develop in that area that you're seeing on your same radar. Now, with that being said, as I said, it's going to take some time before this gets to a point where it takes over. And that's probably not going to happen, like I said, with the declining heat potential and everything and the size of it. It's basically not going to happen. It would never complete anyhow.
Yes. And you were talking about this microwave imagery, correct? Right here.
Well, yes, correct. That's about one of the worst quality ones you can get, but I mean, it still shows you overall what's going on here. So we are nearing peak intensity, I believe.
Yes.
I will say, I'm looking at that eye. That is impressive.
Yes, and the Eyewall as well.
It's wow.
Yes. All right. Now, let's see, what else was I going to pull up? Distances from certain areas. I want to briefly touch on this. Currently, the center is roughly around 950 kilometers away from Hong Kong, roughly around 350 kilometers away from the southernmost tip of Taiwan, roughly 570 kilometers away from Manila, and roughly around, that'd be 1,300 kilometers away from where it's forecasted to make landfall in Guangdong province, and roughly around 1,700 kilometers away from Halong in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And now what I'd like to touch on is the model guidance here on three systems, Neoguri, Ragasa, and
speaking of Neoguri, let me say something quickly about it. So we're going to get another recon here in about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not going to have a good second peak because it must have failed the eyewall replacement. It must have failed it or something. Okay. Anyways, we did get, it actually looks a little better than earlier. We did get a recon about 8 hours after the overall peak. That recon reported 933 millibars. With that being said, and the extrapolation of how the cloud pattern looked versus at peak compared to when it was at the recon, I believe
what time was recon in?
It was in at 0430Z.
Okay, so let me go to 0430Z. This is 0430Z.
Yes.
And then
that
peak
is when the
was
recon was at.
Z?
It recorded. No, the peak was like 22Z.
Oh, wow, yeah. So here's 22Z. and that is
You see where I'm going with this, right?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. If they recorded 933 millibars, we have another SAM. It's that simple. This was a SAM. It was a Cat 5 at peak that the Recon got too late. That's literally what it was.
Wow. Okay. What were the wins did
Because
they get in the Recon mission?
Unfortunately, they didn't do it. They just dropped it. It was mainly an upper level mission because they were. You got to realize with the trends that we're seeing on the models with it going west, they were concerned that it might hit Japan. So they wanted to do an upper level analysis to make sure it did. Well, thankfully, they decided to make one passage through the eye, and they dropped a sonde in there, and that's how we know it was 933 at that time, and it most likely peaked between 920 to 925. So I think that you can say either 135 or 140.
Yes.
There you go.
Wow.
Which is kind of what I thought.
And now, why is it expected to move now away from Japan and move towards the northeast?
Well, it was never forecasted to go west, but the reason why there were some models showing that is because some models showed it missing the trough. They did not think that it would be far enough north and catch the timing. Well, the reason why this is actually going to happen is because if you look down in the image there, you will see the large Ragasa right there.
Yeah.
Go back a little bit.
I'm sorry, right here?
Go back to like a day ago.
Like here?
That's fine. Okay. So you have a system as large as Ragasa that is tracking underneath that same ridge that Neogiri would have to go west into, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what scenario would it have made sense for it to go west into that ridge? And the reason why that did not happen is because Ragasa got strong enough and powerful enough to advect heat into the ridge north of it and strengthen that ridge and prevent Neogiri from hitting Japan.
Okay, so it
Japan
can't go west.
Right, because it would go into a ridge, and that's a ridge deflects it, not attracts it.
Yes, even though that it does miss that initial trough, just the ridge there blocks it, and the ridge to the east blocks it as well. So
then it gets picked up by another. It gets picked up by another trough. That's why it's such a slow recurve. Usually, when you see a storm at this latitude that's turning north or northeast, it's doing it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If you notice, not for Neogiri, and the reason that is because it's getting left behind by that trough, and then it's getting swooped up by the next one.
Yes.
And the presence of Ragasa pumping outflow into that ridge is not allowing that ridge to weaken for it to go further west. So Japan can literally thank Ragasa for Neogiri not hitting them.
Yes, because it looked concerning earlier. I saw the German run from yesterday, I think it was.
There was a point where probably 80% of the EPS suit was going really west like that right there. And, it's hard to forecast against the Euro deterministic being that consistent and the EPS. But this is a time that it legitimately fumbled the bag. I don't recall the Euro fumbling the bag this hard on a track. Usually when with a track forecast, it does pretty good. We know it does bad with intensity, but it usually does good with track.
Yep.
So basically, it's just it fumbled hard. I don't know why it continued to show that solution. I'm not sure why that is. I think maybe it has something to do with the fact that even though it still showed a strong storm with Ragasa, it underestimated.
Yes.
But I think there's more. I think there's more to it than that. Not sure why it hung on to that solution so much for so many days. I've never seen the Euro hold on to something for so long until a day before it's about to happen and then cave. So it takes the big L on this one.
Yes.
But hey, that happens.
I think the AI models were pretty consistent on it moving northeast.
They were, and actually the AI models, for some time they had it missing the trough, but all of the reliable track guidance models always had it taking the curve.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those models, dynamical and statistical track models, they ended up winning in the end. And, when you look at where it is, you got to realize it's kind of hard for that not to go out to sea. It's located at the 30 degrees north and 150, which the fact that, we've had storms in the Western Pacific before that get to this intensity. but they usually do it over by Okinawa or in East China Sea. This is like further east, so it was a bit of an outlier. And the only reason that it happened is because it came from the same TUTT that destroyed Hurricane Kiko in the EPAC.
And I think I can show it by doing this, I think, and if I go back enough, let me go even farther back. Right around here, I'd say. Would this be it, this TUTT? Or is that not it?
You're better off to see it on, go on my Twitter. I posted a satellite loop of it.
Yeah, but I'll try to show it on here. Let me go back even farther. Can I? Does it not want me to? Okay.
If you can't, then it is what it is. But you can see on the satellite, you can see the TUTT that's shearing Kiko. Kill it off.
Here. If I go to vorticity.
Yes.
So this was the remnants of Kiko right there. And then if I pull up this right here, this is what was shearing it, which ultimately tore it apart, made it dissipate, and so it spawned in this disturbance.
So you see right there, the TUTT itself is what happened. Is it spent so much time over warm waters in thermodynamics that eventually it produced convection that slowly worked its way down to the surface. And it's not a traditional method of formation as we know, but it's not as uncommon as one may think, actually. And when you spend enough time in a deep tropical environment, even though it wasn't in the deep tropics, the amount of heat in those waters due to the extreme subtropical warmth that we have in the North Pacific this year basically helped create this, because it created its own favorable conditions, because not only is the sea surface temperatures warmer, but the instability is better when it is, because that creates a little bit of a rising motion in itself. So it kind of was cocooned, I guess you could say, by the very subtropical warmth in the Western Pacific, and that's what created it to happen. Yeah.
And something I found interesting, though, is the AI models were doing an amazing job showing Neoguri forming and Ragasa forming compared to the other models. Why weren't they picking it up as early as the AI models?
I don't know. Global models have not been doing very good this year. We know that. The AI models have been doing better. I just think the AI models are relying more on things like climatology as well. And when you got the MJO moving in the basin, transition to its fall pattern, it's only logical something's going to form. And
yes, even just a slight disturbance.
The AI models have been pretty good at doing this. And so far this year, the best one has actually been the Google model. It sniffed out Kiko being a Cat 4 when literally the GFS barely even made it a tropical storm. And now it also showed Ragasa. Every single member on it was literally under 950 millibars. And when every member of us goes under 950, you have to really pay attention to stuff like that. So I'm not sure why that is, but we're seeing a really good performance here from the AI models. And hopefully that keeps up, because they're doing a pretty good job at sniffing out tropical formation.
And speaking of the Google AI model, I'd like to pull up this next disturbance, 92W. Whoops. Is that it right there? Yeah, there it is. And let's look at what these are showing on the Google AI model here. Showing about over half of the members showing a Category 1 out of the system. What are your thoughts on this next system that could impact the central Philippines, including Manila?
Well, I mean, it's always hard to say right now, until we get a more coherent center forming. But the models are remaining pretty consistent on showing a general strengthening trend as this approaches the central Philippine Islands, and it's something they definitely need to watch. And they know this heading into the fall months. This is when they get most of their activity, especially during the La Nina season. So this is something they need to watch right here. The waters there are so ridiculously powerful, but obviously, as we know, the upper level goes into it, as well as how broad does it start out? Can it take advantage, of those waters and the conditions if they set up? So something that we'll have to watch, but we got a good model consensus here on this generally becoming at least a typhoon before, it gets there. And a storm on this track in the Philippine Sea, if there's anything that I'm going to bet on, it's probably going to be the upper end of the intensity guidance. So
Yeah.
just something they're going to need to watch over the next week for sure. And the models continue to remain consistent on the formation of that system and it moving towards the Philippines, most likely hitting them as a typhoon.
Mm-hmm. And about the upper level pattern, it doesn't look as favorable. Why is that compared to Ragasa?
Well, first of all, there's going to be some shear from Ragasa because it's so large. It's so large of a system that it's going to put some lingering shear from its outflow. And not only that, but it doesn't seem that this system is going to have its own ventilator, so to speak. Early on, Ragasa was powerful enough where it could kill the upper level lows that were around it. It doesn't seem this system will be able to, but you never really know. You never know, and we'll have to see how it evolves.
And so it could be better than what the models are forecasting, is what you're saying, if things go right.
It could be, but it can also go worse. A lot of things are about timing, and if it is a little slower to develop, or if it's not aligned right with the ULAC, if it tries to develop one, then that could hamper its ability. And likewise, if the other thing happens and it gets more aligned and more organized, then it can become stronger. So I think over the next 3 days, it'll be a little bit more clear. And then once we have a coherent storm form, a depression or a storm, which will likely be at the end of this week, then I think at that point, then we will have a better handle on that system.
But we're pretty confident that it should be at least,
Oh, yeah, we're pretty confident it's going to be at least a typhoon. And then when it reemerges over the South China Sea, a lot of the guidance there tends to show another intensification trend. So that's something we'll have to watch, especially given that area right there of Vietnam has been impacted this year by Kajiki. And, last year they were recovering from Yagi too. And again, we are still over a week out from any impacts here to this area that's being highlighted.
Yes.
But the model guidance has consistently shown a system moving in that direction. So it's the people there should be at least advised of that possibility.
Yes.
But obviously at this point, not freak out or anything because there's still a lot of uncertainties, but it's smart to be advised of that possibility at this point.
Exactly. Right now, we're going to be focused, or in the near term, we're going to be focusing on the Philippines, and then in the longer range, it may become a problem for Hainan Island, Guangxi province of China, and then parts of Vietnam, a large part of Vietnam.
Yep.
Let's see, what else was I going to show here? I'd briefly like to go over the signal warnings for the Philippines here. There are Signal 5 warnings in effect for a majority of the Babuan Islands, except for the southwesternmost one. Signal 4 warnings are in effect for northernmost Cagayan and northwestern Cagayan, and the Ilocos Norte, the northern portion of there, and the southernmost Batanes Islands. Signal 3 warnings are in effect for a majority of Cagayan, Apayao, and a majority of Ilocos Norte, and the rest of the Batanes Islands. And Signal 2 warnings for majority of northern Luzon, and Signal 1 warnings for...
Come on, JGWC, really?
What happened? Did their
145, 910. Are you serious?
Wow, okay, so they haven't strengthened it that much. What was it at before?
Well, there was 914 the last update. The thing is that they're not... The observation just but they don't use observation, so...
Mm-hmm. Do we have any observations?
Not since that 900 millibar one.
All right.
But we will definitely... If we should have observations moving over Calayan.
Yes. All right. So it looks like there's another tiny island here. I'm guessing that's uninhabited. All right. So now I'm gonna look at the rainfall forecast. Hold on. Let's see if we have a radar image update here. So we can see Babuan Island there getting the brunt of it. They're getting the core soon there. Here's a look at where the Eyewall is located in. And we should see that start creeping up on radar soon. I know that we saw it earlier on one of these earlier frames. That was still a while ago. And let's see. I will briefly cover the rainfall totals in some of these areas over the next 5 days. This is going to be from the European run. Parts of eastern Taiwan could see over 400 millimeters, but we saw earlier on some of those high resolution models, maybe over 1,000 millimeters of rain are possible. And parts of China and Hong Kong here around 200 to 250 millimeters. That would be around 8 inches to 10 inches. Do you think that's an accurate estimate? Or do you think it could be higher?
Probably higher.
Because of the large
There's going to
suns?
be probably higher because there's going to be, the massive size and the outflow of the system. So I would be going on the higher end.
Yes. Parts of Mindoro here, 300 millimeters of rain, and parts of northwestern Luzon, 350 millimeters of rain. And the other models should be fairly consistent as well on the rainfall totals. Hong Kong, those areas, generally 200 to 300 millimeters of rain. I haven't seen much high totals for parts of Vietnam. Only around 100 to or 50 to 100 millimeters of rain. Do you think that like a majority of the rain is going to be collapsing, or like not be as well put together by the time it reaches Vietnam?
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, that means that you're going to have a lot of isolated rains too, just not as much widespread. But there's still going to be a lot of rainfall because there's still going to be a lot of deep convection and a lot of energy with the system. So I don't think that, yes, kind of in a way, but I don't think it should be seen as a lesser, as of a lesser rain.
Yep.
It's still going to be pretty significant.
Yes. We do have a question here. I'll go through the questions. Will Nando or Ragasa make landfall at noon or in the afternoon? Remember, our time zones are flipped at 12 hours, so here's where it was at around 9 o'clock. Do you think it's going to be making landfall at 12 o'clock or afterwards?
So basically in 3 hours, right?
Yes.
I say that's a pretty good time frame, but it's worth considering that Pagasa has a different definition of landfall. So when the eyewall touches, is when they consider that to be a landfall.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize
Landfall
that.
by us is considered to be when they get into the center of the eye. So they are trending towards potentially getting in that center of the eye. So I think that it's worth noting the difference. By Pagasa standards, that landfall could probably will occur a little sooner than 3 hours from now.
Yes. Let's see what other questions. Let's see here. Someone was mentioning that it's so strong, the rain here, that it feels like it's not signal 2 or the FX. I don't know what they were saying there. Okay, in Abra, let me pull up that area there. They were saying that it feels like it's stronger than signal 2 conditions, just due to the rain. How do rain bands, I guess, how do I phrase it? How how would thunderstorms increase some of those winds?
So basically, in the outflow, you have updrafts that are produced, and that can produce the thunderstorms in the outflow layer, just like you can have in your average everyday thunderstorms. And with that, you get a little bit of rain or a little bit of wind. But I think most of the wind is going to come from the core and the wind field's core, but also in the outer bands too. Because when you have an organized line of convection of those outer bands, it's only natural to expect that you're going to have some pretty intense winds in some of these outer bands. Like if you go to the satellite imagery,
Yes.
right now you will see pretty classic that you see with Western Pacific systems where you have a strong banding feature to the west and southwest. And those right there are the ones that I would be looking for to potentially even produce some isolated tornadoes and some strong straight line winds in those bands because of the unpredictability of the convection in those bands as well as
Yes.
the fact that you've got a line of organized storms there. So that's something that I'd be watching out for if I'm in the outer bands.
Yes, because again, it's not just the core of impacts. Like if you're in the center getting the worst impacts, you could also get impacts in the outer bands, even all the way up in parts of central Taiwan there, or eastern Taiwan, or the western Luzon, for example. Those areas could be experiencing some pretty bad thunderstorms in those outer bands. Let's see. Someone mentions Ragasa reminds me of Kongray from last year, but better. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it earlier.
Yep.
When a storm is taking shape, developing, you're like, it reminds me of so and so, but it's gotten to a point where it's developed its own legacy. But I can
Yes.
see that Conray comparison, but a little better because while maybe it's not quite as large at its peak wind field size, at least not yet as Conray was, and maybe not even at its overall peak, the amount of energy this possesses compared to Conray is likely larger. And Conray, as impressive of a storm as that it was, this is a
Hmm.
lot stronger. So I do agree with their assessment. You have a large eye super typhoon moving through the same general area, and it's a really large system. And this one right here is just that much more powerful, you know.
Yes. Someone mentions it's like a Katrina, but in the Western Pacific. Powerful Cat 5 that weakened but unleashed Cat 5 like impacts. I think they're mainly talking about if it hits Hong Kong as a Cat 3 or Cat 4.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison because that even though it's weakening, it's going to still have a large wind field. It's going to maintain a pretty deep central pressure. Katrina and Katrina maintained into the 920s at landfall, even
Oh,
though
well,
that
yeah.
it weakened off its peak. And I think that there's a possibility this will maintain a pressure as well into the 920s, potentially 930s at landfall, because the weakening is going to be slow at first. When you have this large of a system, it takes time to spin it down. It doesn't just right away. So once it does begin that terminal weakening trend, it's going to be slow, and it's probably going to expand its wind field more from an eyewall replacement cycle that it's most likely not going to complete, but it still leads to the wind field expanding. And that's a pretty good comparison because even though the storm, Katrina is a good example of it, where even though the storm weakens off its peak, the effects of it does not get any better. If anything, it gets worse because it gets so much larger. So I think you're seeing that as well here with Ragasa, and that's a good comparison.
Yes. Let's see what other questions we have. Um, let's see. Someone asked, do you think an eyewall replacement cycle is imminent, or do you think we're going to see another one? I think you briefly touched on that earlier.
Yeah, so it's trending towards one occurring, but I don't think that it's going to complete it because of how large that the next outer eye wall is going to be, and the fact that the heat content is decreasing due to the fact that yes, if you look at the sea surface temperatures, you're like, what do you mean? You got 30 degrees Celsius? That's true, but you got a shallow area here in the South China Sea. Once we cross around 118 degrees east latitude or so, which is about right there in
Yeah,
that
right there.
blue line, it starts to get shallower, progressively shallower the more west you get in the South China Sea. And when you have a large system like this, that's not good because it's churning up the colder waters from beneath. And like where it's at now, it's warm and it's deep. So it's not having an effect on it. But as it gets further west, it will, because since they are not as deep, it doesn't hold that warmth with depth. And therefore, it's going to churn up those colder waters beneath it. Essentially, in layman's terms, it uses up the energy faster, and there's less overall energy because of that. So that's
Here's a
why you're
better
going to
look at it.
see, yes. So that right there is when you basically drop below 100 OHC, maybe even 75 being conservative with the size of the storm. It's going to be downhill from there with this. It's going to be churning its cold wake because it's cooling the water a day before it gets there due to how shallow that water is.
Yes. And yeah, it's going to be over an area with under 25. points of oceanic heat content. So that's pretty much going to weaken it quite dramatically. Or not dramatically, but definitely weaken it.
It's going to weaken it in terms of the max winds, but it's not going to really weaken it in terms of the overall
Pressure
impact
surge,
and,
yeah.
and the energy that it carries. Yes, the pressure will rise, but in this situation, I like to make it clear that even though the storm will weaken, the impacts are going to be still really bad, especially with the surge here on the Lights Out Peninsula.
Yes. Aileen Rose says, I haven't seen you since last year. Yeah, that was during the Philippine coverage in November of last year. How do you think the impacts, I guess, on the Philippines, has it been below average this year, would you say, so far?
Yes, definitely, because up until METAG, which was last week, we did not even have a single ACE unit produced in the entirety of the Philippine Sea.
All
We
just
had right there,
disturbances.
just disturbances that eventually went on to develop either further north or in the South China Sea. And given that now, I mean, obviously, that's a way to turn it around, go from nothing there to
Cat 5.
having this. So, yeah, that right there speaks for itself. But that's why, it's been a below average impact so far. They've seen a lot of rainfall from precursor disturbances, but they've not seen impacts from tropical cyclones itself. What a way to, like I said, turn that around. Not obviously not in a way they want to, but in the La Nina, when you're in the fall, it's not uncommon at all for them to get the majority of their impacts, like a backloaded season, so to speak, and like what we could see this year.
Yep, and like we were mentioning earlier, this isn't going to be the only storm that the Philippines will need to watch out for this year. There's definitely going to be at least one more, I'd say, to look out for, and there's probably going to be another one after this.
Yeah. But in the meantime, obviously you have to consider the fact that they're dealing with this monster.
Yes.
And then next week, then they've got to turn their attentions, thankfully, a different region of the Philippines.
Yes.
At least it'll give these guys a little bit of break over here that are going to take the battering from this Category 5.
Yes, they will need the break.
They certainly will. So as now you got to look in the central Philippines, and they're no stranger to typhoons either. Obviously, they get, they usually have one or two a year they've got to watch, but 92W is one that by the end of the week could be knocking on their door as a typhoon, and potentially a little more than that, depending how things work out.
Yeah. Let's see what else. A question also was asking, is the next storm going to be a tropical storm or so? Could be a typhoon, could be weaker, could be stronger. It's a little bit uncertain, as Riley was mentioning earlier, just due to how far out it is.
I would like to think that it would be weaker than Ragasa, though.
Yes.
Let's certainly hope that it is. But I think right now that it should be aware that the residents of, Visayas in the central region of the Philippines should be aware that there most likely probably is going to be, at the very least, a high-end tropical storm and probably a typhoon heading for them by the end of this week.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. Another question was about might be really strong winds tomorrow night in Hong Kong. I'd like to briefly touch over the model run on it. Let's see, where is the model run? I guess it's over here. In terms of timing for those winds, the green here is tropical storm force winds. Hong Kong here, even on 5 p.m., that would be, let's see, the 23rd. So I just got to do some mental math here. Today is Sunday. That means it's Monday for the Philippines, and then that would be Tuesday at 5 p.m. So Tuesday evening, it looks like, is when tropical storm conditions could begin in parts of Hong Kong, even though the center is very far away from Hong Kong. And then it looks like damaging winds could start occurring at around 11 p.m. on Tuesday. I believe, let me just make sure. Yep, Tuesday. Again, even though that the center is well away from there, the center is, I think, that would be 9 hours away from landfall at that time, if it were to make landfall. 9 hours away, and they're already getting damaging winds. And even 6 hours before landfall, they would be getting typhoon force winds. So, yes, there could be some strong winds tomorrow. Or let's see, hold on. Yeah, it's Monday there, so tomorrow looks like is a day that they could be seeing some impacts. Tuesday and Wednesday seems like. And if I go
All I
further in
got is
time,
also there was somebody, which is not even a long streak at all. You remember when Michael Ferragamo released his image of all the Western Pacific
yes, the
landfall,
Western Pacific landfalls. Yep.
and he showed the Category 5s?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody commented, and this is literally probably 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Somebody commented and said, how come there hasn't been any in 5 years?
Oh boy.
I think somebody needs to, talk about a jinx.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Because we're pretty confident that we're going to see a Cat 5 landfall out of this. I mean, there's no way that it's going to miss. At least getting in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking
Ragasa.
about like 5 days ago, before this system was even really named? Did you
I
expect
knew it would
this?
be not this, but I knew it would be a Category 5.
Yes. For those who don't know, Riley sent me a message earlier saying that to forecast a Cat 4 in the first
At
advisory,
least.
just seeing that high of a ceiling of the storm.
When it comes to the Western Pacific, I know ball.
Yes. And he said that for both systems, Neoguri and Ragasa, and both became at least Cat 4s. Both might have been Cat 5s.
Yeah, Neorgi, that recon after peak gives you a pretty strong argument, similar to Sam in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So, and I'm pretty sure I don't know a single person that doesn't think Sam wasn't a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know a single person. Like, there's really no reason it should have been left at 130. That's a whole different thing, but it's comparable in that regard.
Yeah. Just looking at some more of the comments there. Yes, Mr. Peach mentions that, however, let's not forget the landfall impacts once it hits China. A storm that large is not what you want impacting a heavily populated coastline. China's coastline is one of the most populated, would you say that's correct?
Oh yeah, their coastline is heavily populated there along the South China Sea, and he's right. You know, there's going to be a lot of impacts there, especially when it comes to storm surge and widespread damaging winds. Like, there's going to be a large area, pretty much almost the whole part of the cone there along the Chinese coast that you show it touching.
Mm-hmm.
Much of that area is going to receive 50 knot winds sustained.
So
and,
you can see trees down, power outages, things like that at the
tree-
minimum.
trees down, power outages. You know, that's perhaps a good deal away from the center. In the center, you know, you're going to still have a Cat 2 or 3 typhoon probably coming ashore there in the Lights Out Peninsula. And when you do, you're also going to have a significant amount of storm surge. I mean, how much? It's all a speculation, but it's going to be in the double digits.
Yes.
In terms of feet.
Yes, and in meters. Oh, I should probably pull up that graphic from Pagasa, the surge forecast. I'll pull it up in a moment. It said at least 3 meters for some areas, which, let's see, where was there? Oops, I'll pull this up on stream momentarily. I know it couldn't have been that long ago. Here it is, and I will open this up so that way the stream can see it. Here it is. More than 3 meters for Cagayan, northern Ilocos Norte, the Babuin Islands, and the Batanes Islands. You think there could be 4 meters or more surge, Riley?
There could be. You know, unfortunately, we're at a situation, you know, where surge levels are very, very immense. And when you have a large system that's a Category 5, then you are going to get significant surge. And, you know, I think that the 4 meters, every bit of what they are forecasting is possible. It's really the only good thing is that these islands are somewhat elevated,
Yes.
except for along the coast. But I mean, along the coast, man, that's unsurvivable unless they can get to higher ground. And hopefully, when they do get to higher ground, they've got to get to a really secure and sturdy structure too. So hopefully, they're well prepared. And like I said, being exposed to as many monsters as the Philippines are, this ain't their first rodeo and they know about it. But you can still never prepare for the magnitude of a storm like this.
Yes.
Okay, what I'm going to say. So this is not as strong as Haiyan. I mean, I think it has a deeper pressure. I think it has a deeper pressure than Haiyan had at peak right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not winds. It's not close. But if this storm hit where Haiyan did, the damage would be 5 times as worse because this is 3 times as large as Haiyan.
Yeah.
And it's moving slower. It's not moving slow. Thank God it's not moving slow. Because if this was moving like Dorian, this would quite literally be. That's the only way this could be worse is if it was stalling like Dorian.
Yes.
Other than that, it's basically what that is for those islands right now. That's basically what this is. This is Dorian without it stalling on top of him.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing to compare. That's about my best comparison,
Yes. Somebody mentioned, or TCXLC32 mentions, Ragasa reminds me of Hagapit of 2008. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
I would say if it reminds me of any storm, I would say it's kind of man-cut, but it's kind of developed its own thing. Hagaput 2008, though, was kind of sloppy compared to how Ragasa is now. But if he's talking about like the track and how it may be in terms of intensity and structure when it gets near Hong Kong, then I actually do think that he's onto something a little there, and that's not too bad of a comparison. Obviously not at peak, but approaching Hong Kong and stuff might be onto something. But I mean, if anything, it might be a little stronger. Mm-hmm. It really might be a little stronger than that. Maybe not winds wise, but pressure wise, it's probably going to be deeper.
Yep.
So not a bad comparison in terms of the Chinese approach, and it's a similar time of the year and a similar track too. So
September.
A little more similar than I thought there at first. So I apologize for that, but I see what you mean now in terms of the Chinese part of it. That's not a bad comparison.
Yes. Jorge asks, is it dealing with any wind shear right now? Or like how much wind shear would you say it is if it is?
Less than 5 knots at the moment. So in about 12 to 18 hours, we may see a little bit of a shear increase, mostly out of the northeast or so. But we are going to be moving in the westerly to west-southwesterly direction over this forecast period. So the effect of that shear is less than it normally would be. Let me give you an example. Shear is going to increase to 10 knots, but we're also moving west at 10 knots. So the effect of shear still remains practically near zero here. Now, if the shear increases more, 15, 20 knots, then you have more effective net shear over the storm. So while the shear is expected to increase, it's not going to really matter due to the fact that it's in the same direction as the storm. And when you become this large and this intense anyways, it's going to take more than 10 knots of shear to bring you down.
Yes.
I mean, it's 10 knots of shear is not going to do anything to this storm.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, it is expected to weaken due to decreasing heat potential in the waters and a likely eyewall replacement cycle that it won't be able to recover from.
Let's see. Just looking at more of the chat, seeing if there's any other questions. Andrew mentions, I'm just noticing this that the eye wall of Super Typhoon Nando or Ragasa just got bigger. I think he may be talking about over the longer period of time.
Yeah, yeah. He's talking about over the course of, and that is because it underwent Eyewall replacement cycle. This is a very common phenomenon that we see in tropical cyclones, usually at major intensity, category 3, 4, and 5. And the higher intensity you get, the more likely that it is for the storm to eventually undergo one. And in this particular case, the storm actually did the process quite well. I would
Yes.
almost say that it was basically flawless. This is about as flawless of a traditional eyewall replacement cycle that you
Yes.
can do, going from small to smaller than average size eye to a larger than average size eye. And that is why you now have a large eye, and Chase is playing the loop. You can basically see this process. This right here should be an educational example on what it looks like, because this is really textbook. And you can clearly see the eye literally just gets bigger. It just carves itself out. And
Right
that's literally
there.
what it did, because as you see right there, the outer ring of convection is becoming dominant, and it ate away at that inner eye wall because it robbed it of its inflow and moisture. So it disintegrated and it succumbed to the outer eye wall. And as that occurred, that outer eye wall, you began to see the real size of it, with that eye carving out and getting larger there. So that's
Yes.
what you see. You see the normal process that occurs in intense storms, and a well documented and not a well understood, but a well known thing that it happens with storms of this intensity. It's just a much larger eye than what we typically see.
Yep. So it likely doubled to almost tripled in size.
It did, yes.
Let's see. Um, Someone was mentioning Doksuri. This is the strongest rain they've had since Doksuri 2023. The difference, though, is that storm stalled for a day, which made them get rain for
Yeah.
a while. Right. Let's see. Luke Clark mentions 3 models are showing a Hong Kong landfall. What do you think about that? Why do you think they're
Yeah.
so
So,
consistent on that?
when models are consistent on something, it's definitely worth noting that. So we can't throw this out of the window. We hope it don't happen. If it does happen, it's not going to be good. But the good news is that the European model and the majority of the reliable track guidance tends to keep it south of Hong Kong, but a little closer than we would like, with the track guidance being generally more south than the European is. But when you have models getting that close, and some of them
Yeah.
even showing a direct hit with a storm like this, you're definitely wondering what's going to happen, because that's a large metro area there, Hong Kong and Macau. That is a very, very large and significant area. Like, there's over 1 billion people.
Yes.
I don't, or certainly near it along that coastline, if there's not.
Yep. The best case scenario would be the storm moving towards the south, towards Haiyan Island.
Yes,
Gives you the
that
most
would,
amount of time to weaken, and stays the
right. But
farthest away.
oftentimes, when we are dealing with a situation like this, the best case scenario for somebody is the worst case scenario for someone else.
Yes.
So, it's a double-edged sword, like
Exactly.
you get at times with tropical cyclones. If it were to go further south, that would be good for Hong Kong, and that would be good for more people overall. But then,
Yes.
if
Worse for
that hits,
Hainan Island.
I mean, that would be devastating. So, and they're going to have some pretty bad impacts either way, because they're going to be exposed to some of those typhoon force winds and that storm surge. But one wobble one way is help someone and hurt someone else too. An example of it that I personally experienced would be Hurricane Irma in 2017. The storm hit me directly, and as many know, it hit Cuba and spent a day or so
Yes.
riding that coast of Cuba, and it took its intensity down from a Category 5 down to Category 2. And it was able to get back to Category 4 before it hit the Keys, and it was down to Category 3 by the time it hit me. But most likely, if that doesn't happen, then I'm being hit with a 4 or 5 there. And, while that benefited me, that helped me, that hurt Cuba because they took they took the blow for me, basically. So that's something that you have when you're dealing with systems like this, is you have times where one shift one way helps someone, and unfortunately it hurts someone too. So that's the unfortunate reality of how this is.
Yes. See, Sean asked if Gabrielle is now a hurricane. Have you looked at that much?
I have. And it is a hurricane. It's been upgraded to second hurricane of the season by the NHC at the 5 p.m. advisory. More strengthening is expected. Not sure if it's forecasted to become a major, but I took a brief look at the parameters and stuff this morning, and it seems like a Cat 2 peak, similar to, I think, Ernesto 2024 can be expected. And, you can always maybe get a little bit better, and you might be able to get Cat 3.
I noticed that some of the high-resolution models, like the half-say model, was showing a Cat 4 out of it briefly. Do you think that could happen?
I mean, it could, but, I don't know how particularly likely it is. It would probably depend on the core size and stuff, but
Yes.
The higher you get in latitude, the harder it gets to develop a small core.
Let's see what else. Farhia asks, could it be 155 knots right now, Ragasa?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, Pagasa, the agency for the Philippines, went with the equivalent of 155 knots.
Oh, wow.
And JMA went with the equivalent of 150 knots.
Wow, okay.
So yeah. Basically, yeah, for sure. And in fact, I would say with the pressure data we had earlier, it's probably more likely than not.
Yes.
Because we had data earlier that suggested that it was under 900 millibar.
Let's see. Someone asked, two people were asking about the cone of uncertainty, so I'll discuss that briefly using that ensemble thing over here. Here's a look at kind of the probabilities of where it's going. On the northernmost end of the solution, and this is just the center of where it could go towards eastern Guangdong province. And on the southernmost end here, it could go towards Hainan Island, southern Hainan Island, and onto Vietnam. There's a lot of room for where it could go in between that. The currently most likely scenario is it's going to move somewhere just west of Hong Kong, is what it looks like. Or it could be even a little bit more south of that, or a little bit more to the north towards Hong Kong. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty spread out there between Hainan Island and Guangdong province. And it's going to be moving a little bit parallel to the coast, more parallel than perpendicular. So that always makes it a little bit trickier to figure out where exactly it will hit. And another question is from Typhoon Lover asks, is more intensification possible? Or do you think it's peaking?
I think it's getting pretty. I think it's peaking because, it's already crazy to be this. Okay, so to be this strong with this size of an eye and not have a jet interaction and not be a pinhole is pretty insane. So it's probably getting near the max that it can support, not in terms of a pure central pressure perspective, but in terms of an overall energy perspective, when you look at how large this system is and how much energy it's consuming out of the ocean there. And by the way, Babunion is definitely entering the RMW now.
All right, that.
So I wouldn't expect more. I mean, I think anybody with any sense knows if there's one thing in meteorology you don't bet against, it's the Western Pacific. But
yes.
I mean, with Eyewall replacement cycle coming and the heat content declining, I think we're pretty near the peak, if not at it.
Yes. Let's see what else. Stacy Boyer asks, thank you for doing this. Can you talk about the effects for Lipa City or Batangas over the next couple days? I'll figure out where that is. So that would be Lipa City, and that would be, I'm guessing over here. Maybe, whoops. Shoot, why are all the cameras up? Okay, let me make sure that this... Nope, that's not the correct area.
That's definitely not it.
Yes, Batangas.
That's about the most opposite area that.
Oh. Okay, I found it. Lipa City over here. They are not under any signal warnings, but they could get some rain from that south westerly monsoon.
Yeah, it enhances that monsoon a lot, and that
Yes.
provides, basically double the rainfall totals you would expect otherwise, if not more. And given how large it is and its influence, and when a system is monsoonal, when it comes from the monsoon trough, it tends to drag some of that with it when it becomes this large and dominant, as you notice. So it's going to continue to enhance that southwesterly monsoon now for at least the next day or two,
Yes.
and maybe even a little more. But given your location, I would be keeping an eye on the storm or the invest that could become our next storm.
Yes,
Invest 92W. Because the models generally show that it could be a threat for your area. You're likely to receive at least some rain and wind from that. The exact impacts are later to be determined, but it's likely that you will see some from it.
Yes, good point. I forgot to mention that. Yes, that there could be a typhoon potentially moving over there. That would be on Friday, I believe. Thursday looks like the earliest time of impacts. Friday's the most likely, and then Saturday is when it should be leaving. So yeah, be prepared for that. It's not just going to be this system delivering some rain, but also the next one. Let's see.
So right here, I'm going to post in the thing, and you can pull it up. This is the latest 18Z run for the Google ensembles for that system that we are speaking of, which is 92W.
Yeah.
Right here.
Let's see. Ooh, nice. Okay. So I'll pull that up on stream here. A better depiction of them. Here, yeah, and you can see all of them have it going towards the Philippines. Depending on how far north or south it goes, it's a little bit harder to narrow down. But you can see these ensembles here when they get into the South China Sea. A little bit stronger, but it's harder to, or it's less, or we have less confidence as to what it's going to do when it enters there. But we can see some of them, all this yellow coloring is at least Category 1. So majority of them do show at least a typhoon out of it. Only a couple show just a tropical storm. Or I mean, at its peak, but yeah, I'd say a couple of them show tropical storm or just a disturbance. But yeah,
a few Category 3 members in there.
Yes, Category 3 is even
but
a Category 4.
One.
Oh, right. See, the next local
just
name is
the trends.
Opong.
Just watch the trends. Watch the trends.
Yes.
Keep an eye on the model trends. Do they continuously show the same track, showing the same strength when it forms? Are they showing the same general thing? If they are, then you have a pretty good idea that that's probably what's going to happen, and we'll know more in about 3 days or so. I think in 3 days we'll have a pretty decent handle on this storm.
Yes, and of course, if it does look like more of a threat, we will continue to do updates, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date. And we will also be doing another live stream on it if it starts looking like it's going to hit as a typhoon. Do a potentially landfall coverage on that. But again, it's a little bit far out, but we'll have updates over the coming days. See, I heard Ompong was bad.
Next name,
I think that's main cut.
The next name in the Western Pacific naming list is Bualoy. The last time that it was used, it was Category 5, and we are certainly hoping that it will not be.
Yeah, let's hope it's not a repeat.
No, hopefully not, because it's heading for land, so hopefully hopefully that one will underperform. I mean, if there's any track that I would bet on a storm to underperform, it wouldn't be that one, but, let's hope that some of those lower-end ensembles end up being right on that, because they'll need a break there. And the next 5 named in the Western Pacific are Bualoy, Matmo, Halong, Nakri, and Fengsheng. And we are currently at 20 storms for the season. The average is 26, and it's been below average in terms of ACE, even though we're cutting into that deficit now. It seems that we're pretty likely to see an above-average season in terms of named storms, even if we do go below average in ACE. And a lot of these storms are being impactful close to land, so high impact season, even if not a high ACE season. But I mean, with it turning on the switch now, maybe we're going to make up some of that deficit like 2013 did.
Yes, ACE does not equate to the destruction a season can bring. That's what I mentioned in my last animation.
That's correct. In fact, I would say that it might be a little bit more the opposite, because storms that hit near land don't usually produce a lot of ACE, because once they hit land, they're done. So,
exactly. ACE is normally a metric on how well a storm can avoid land some of the time.
It's a metric on storm intensity and duration. That's basically what it is.
Yes, and if you can avoid land long enough, you get higher ACE. And if you stay like a stronger storm, and land is pretty much the best killer for storms.
Mm-hmm.
And I get more questions
here. But I would
here.
say that's even more so the case in the Atlantic, because in the Atlantic, storms that form out on Africa, usually 9 out of 10 times do not affect land. And if they do, it's just the Caribbean islands. And of course, their land and stuff too. But I would say that ACE is more correlated. Like, I'm going to give you an example. A 2010 type season in the Atlantic, it produces hyperactive levels of ACE. But in terms of U.S. impacts, it was a below average one.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Got more questions about the peak of Gabrielle. Looks like to be maybe Cat 2 on the low end. Cat 3 is what the Hurricane Center is forecasting. Maybe Cat 4 at the highest, I think. Here, I'll briefly touch on that run.
Yeah, so right now there's actually, I just took a look at it, probably for the first time in like 12 hours.
Yes.
It's got dual hot towers now rotating, so it's probably starting to get in gear a little better.
Yep.
I mean, given the situation this thing was when it got named, we all know about that.
Yes.
I mean, hey, we'll take it what it's doing. So.
Yes. Of course, Stacy, if you have any other questions, you can always let us know in the chat, and we will gladly answer them. Gaming with Trippin H says their power went out. Where are you located at, Gaming with Trippin H? And yeah, we've pretty much caught up to all the questions now. That's pretty good. Yeah, here, I'll show you, Riley, all the questions and all the chat on here. Just a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're closing in on that landfall, like you were saying. They're getting towards the RMW.
They're likely breaking into it by now.
And this imagery is around 30 minutes ago. So it's likely even closer than that. Here, I will get even closer zoomed in on it. Andrew asked, can you explain the forecast for Nando? Sure. So pretty much it should remain a Category 5. This forecast is around 6 hours, or now 8 hours ago. But should remain a Category 5 for at least the next 12 hours. Would you agree with that, Riley?
Yes.
Before then, beginning to weaken, either due to an Eyewall replacement cycle or just due to not as much oceanic heat content for it. Although the upper level pattern doesn't get less favorable, the waters do. So it should weaken to a Category 4 and then on to Category 3 by the time it reaches China. It all depends on where it makes its landfall. If it's by Hong Kong, could be seeing a Cat 4 out of this. If it's by Hainan Island, maybe only a Category 2, but still a very large storm. So we could be looking at least moderate impacts, possibly major impacts in these areas. Then it moves inland towards Guangxi province as a typhoon before becoming a remnant low over Vietnam and likely dissipating over southeastern Asia. That's pretty much the forecast here. There could be major impacts for the northern Luzon, definitely extreme impacts for the Babuan Islands, possibly major impacts for the Batanes Islands, and major impacts for eastern Taiwan due to rain. So that's pretty much the forecast. If you have any questions about like specific details, you can let me know in the chat. Like, oh, what kind of impacts could my city get? That kind of stuff. Okay, someone says Abra is where they were located at. And they said specifically Langaden. So I'll search that up and we can see what their impacts are looking like. Langaden. Okay, here they're in western Abra. So they're under a signal 2 warning, I believe. Yeah, right over here. Not getting a whole lot, but they are still getting power outages that far away from the center. Again, just pointing out where they're located at. So they're located right around here, a little bit more to the north. But yeah, so the fact that they're getting power outages all the way there, if you extrapolate that to the rest of the center, you could see power outages in the Batanes Islands, definitely the Babuan Islands, and parts of the rest of northern Luzon. And if this trend continues, this kind of size of a wind field, and it continues moving west, could we see some power outages for southern Taiwan, do you think, Riley?
I mean, it's possible, especially with some of the strong gusts that are possible in the outer bands, but Taiwan has a really solid infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Taiwan is built pretty tough, and they're built with typhoon in mind, and the power grids there is stronger than it is in America. In America, it would be out right now. So I think that, and not in my house, though. I mean, I've had 5 foot of water in the house and the power's on. Mm-hmm. I kid you not. I had one guy say, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you showed me a picture of that. I wouldn't believe you. I said, I don't really care if you believe me or not, because I was there. Anyways, yes. In regards to Taiwan, their infrastructure is pretty strong, but I think some power outages are likely, but I don't think it's going to be a widespread thing. It's going to be near the southern tip, and it's going to be maybe some villages here or there, or some, not widespread, isolated, maybe on the southern tip, but I don't expect any widespread power outages.
Now, what about China and Hong Kong? What about their infrastructure?
I think, well, their infrastructure is pretty good, but I think given the size and how close that it's going to be near it, I think they can expect that 50% or so of Hong Kong, maybe more, will be without. Yeah. And obviously if it goes closer than the currently forecasted track, those numbers go up. And if it goes away or further south, then those numbers could go down. But I think as of right now, if you're in Hong Kong, you should expect that you will probably lose power. And 50% of Hong Kong may do so as well.
Yes.
I'd prepare to lose power there.
Yep. We have another question here. This is about the Atlantic. Do you guys think we're going to get another Hurricane Milton or Helene before the end of the season in the Atlantic?
There's no way to know.
Yes.
It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. There's no way of knowing. It's really a 50-50 shot, like it is any year. Yes. You can or you can't. It's all about luck and timing. Does things develop at the right time and the right luck? If a CAG system forms in October, does it favor the Eastern Pacific? Does it favor the Western Caribbean? There's a lot of factors that go into that, and really it's a wild card. It's a 50-50 shot as to what can happen there. It would be pretty strange based on recent years if we don't get a hurricane landfall in the U.S., or it feels like that at least. But
yes.
I mean, then again, if you can also consider the inverse side of that, it's due for there to be a season where that doesn't happen.
Exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, it's a 50-50 shot, I think.
Preston asks is Nando still intensifying?
I don't think so anymore. I think it's leveling off and is probably peaking at around, I think, 890 or so.
And 155 knots.
155 or 160.
Yes.
I'd go 155. That's what I went.
Yep. Mammerds, hello, how are you doing? Hi, Santiago, Isabella, and Luzon, please. Let's look at that. Santiago, let's see, right over there in southwestern Isabella province. Their rainfall over the next 5 days or so, this is on the European run, showing around 40 millimeters of rain. Not a whole lot on the eastern portion of Luzon. German model only showing around 15 millimeters. American model showing around 40 millimeters. So the rain isn't really the main concern. It's going to be the wind. If we look at the signal warnings there for Isabella, signal 2 warning, so maybe see some power outages down trees with the system. And then, like Riley mentioned earlier there, though, there could be another system headed a little bit to the south of Santiago there, but still could see some more rainfall from this next system. But seems like for now it should be targeting central Philippines, so you may be in the clear, but I'd stay up to date on this next system as well.
Yep.
Let's see, and someone else was asking, do you think Nando will intensify more before making landfall? And is it Haiyan? How do you pronounce that?
Okay, so the new JTWC forecast track is out.
I'll pull that up.
I don't agree with what the intensity they went with, but I agree more with this forecast in terms of the progression of the intensity from here. Coming down from peak, this is more realistic. They were showing basically like 60 knots. They were basically showing the Lights Out Peninsula take like 3 categories out of it. And with the size of this system, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
So I think this forecast right here looks better. It shows 80 knots in the Gulf of Tonkin, still coming ashore in Vietnam as a typhoon.
Yes.
Moving inland, dissipating over Cambodia. So I like that one better.
Yes. And then I believe it shifted more south, right?
It did. It ticked up just a tad. Not much. Just a tad. And that is kind of to be expected given the trends that we've seen recently with a little bit of a southward jogs.
Yes. Well, okay. Yeah, it kind of goes. Looks like the center may go to the south of that northeastern Babuan island, but still they should get in the eye. Getting closer. I don't know. It's looking like it's wobbling more to the due west now, so they may get a direct landfall. Briefly like to take a look at how far away it is from the island there. The edge of it is around 15 miles away, 16 miles, and the center looks to be around 37 miles away. So the landfall timer under 3 hours now, and like I was saying earlier, of around 37 miles away. And if we take a look at how far it's traveled in the past hour, which would be like looks like it's traveled at around 13 miles an hour now, and again 37 miles away. So yeah, seems like just under or just around 3 hours. Would you say that's right?
Yep, maybe a little less by now, but around there.
Yes, and the edge of it should begin to touch the island within. Oh, and this is also a little bit out of date as well. So subtract like 30 minutes from whatever I said there. So yeah, like you're saying, a little bit under than 3 hours. Huh?
I just sent a picture of New York's eye during the Recon mission.
Oh
yesterday.
Wow! I'll pull this up.
Yeah, that was yesterday, released just now by the Japan Meteorological Agency. They flew a flight into New York and they recorded 933 millibars during this passage.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So that was worth sharing there. There you go.
Thank you. So if this was around, let's see, 15 miles away, so yeah, under an hour away from entering the eye, it looks like the edge of the eye. Let's see what other questions here. Yes, some Gaming with Triple H mentions both Helene and Milton were already unpredictable. Would you agree with that?
I mean, yes, because especially Milton.
Yes.
Milton, if we recall correctly, it was modeled. Then models backed off, and then they picked it up again. So Milton was kind of a wild card. The Helene was honestly overdue. I felt like the Atlantic was overdue for a large monsoon coming out of the CAG there in late September, early October, like it did late September. And I mean, it was not something that you expect every year, but it wasn't as unexpected as Milton was. Milton has more anomalies.
Yes. Mamerd says, nervous, thanks for asking. Of course. If there's another bad storm coming, we will be doing live streams on it, so don't worry. You should be in the clear mostly in Isabella, at least over the next week or so. Just let's see if there's going to be another system after this 92W that maybe threatens more of Luzon than these islands or central Philippines. Johannes mentions, to your point, Riley, of saying weather is too uncertain and unpredictable, so the most realistic answer is maybe, when you were talking about the chances of a major hurricane impacting the United States.
Basically, yeah.
Mackenzie asked, how much rainfall in Manila? I'll pull that up on here through the various model runs. The American run shows around 120 millimeters. The European run shows around 140 millimeters, and the German run shows around 50. So I'd say around 50 to 200 millimeters of rain could happen over the next 5 days or so. And it also all depends on that next disturbance, since it will be moving in over the next 5 days. If it goes directly over Manila, we could see much higher totals. If it stays to the south, lower totals. It also depends on how organized it gets, not just the track. See, Laugh Central says, I have a take. I think Hurricane Wilma reached winds of around 200 miles an hour with the 882 millibar reading, even though they only gave it 185 miles an hour peak. What do you guys think? What do you think, Riley, about Wilma's peak?
Well, it's often debated, but you see, you would think that a pinhole eye in the low 880s, and I think it even went into the 870s, would be higher than 155 knots. But the thing is that the flight level wind from the aircraft didn't really support higher than that. It supported, it actually supported, if anything, 155. Is it possible that Wilma was higher? It is, but I think that right there would really be dependent largely upon, did it have a strong mixing ratio of 1-to-1. It's worth noting that, alike Super Typhoon Forest 1983, that it did have some internal structural issues at peak. Now you're thinking, well, what do you mean it had some structural issues? It was in the low 880s, right? Yes. But it was undergoing that Eyewall replacement cycle. And when you get a system that is in extreme thermodynamic environments that develops a small pinhole eye like a Wilma or a Forest, something like that, it essentially deepens so rapidly that even when the outer eyewall develops to stop the winds from increasing, it continuously deepens beyond that point a lot of the times, especially with smaller pinhole eye systems. So in the case of Wilma, that's probably what happened. It all depends. Do you think the winds were as high at the surface as they were at flight level? But I think that the most likely explanation for Wilma can be the structural issues that occurred, which would be due to natural processes like Eyewall replacement cycle, making it have that internal structural pressure gradient being a little shallower than you would expect, which results in a lower wind speed as a result than you would expect for a pressure in the low 880s. Basically, the pressure kept deepening for 10 to 15 millibars after the winds had stopped, essentially.
Yes.
But I think that it can be made for an argument that the winds peak probably even occurred before the pressure peak, and that Recon probably missed the wind peak, and that right there is going to be your argument for higher intensity.
Yes. Let's see, Preston asked if we think Gabrielle will become a major hurricane, possibly. And they said it's good that Bermuda has dodged a lot of bullets this year. Let's keep it up like that.
I can see that it's connecting to the jet and it has hot towers wrapping. So, I mean, there's always the possibility of like dry air or something, but it's on track to become a major, I believe. I do believe so.
So you're talking about the outflow there connecting with the jet?
Yeah, you go out to a more wider picture,
Yep,
and you
let me
will
go
see
to
it
true color.
You will see it dramatically expand. Look at this.
Oops, getting loaded.
Wow, there's enough people tracking Ragasa that it's slowing down tropical tidbits. I don't believe it.
Yes.
Usually this is reserved for only Atlantic.
Also, this is a pretty nice upper level low, right? Right over here.
That is.
Seeing a lot of convection with that. Alright.
However, worth noting that same upper level low is going to be the factor in determining whatever that next system is. So that upper level low is going to have to go away. Otherwise, that's going to shear it. That's about the worst place an upper level low can be in all of the Atlantic.
Yeah. Pretty far to the south.
Well, it could be a little further south and then be worse, but yeah.
Yep.
So basically what you see there is you see the outflow is expanding a lot poleward. That is ahead of the trough interaction that you're getting with the jet.
Yep. Johanna's says, impressive eye. Is this one of the most impressive eyes you've seen? Would you say, really?
I would say out of all the large eyes that I've tracked, it's probably the top one. The reason that is because I'm talking large eyes. I'm not talking large, average size eyes or slightly below or slightly above average. I mean, like a Dorian. But this right here is probably, the most impressive of the large eyes just because of how large the system is and the intensity that it possesses. Like, Dorian had a 25, 30 mile wide eye. This is 60 mile wide eye here that we're speaking of.
Yes.
So when you consider all that and the smoothness of it, it's got to be at the top of any list that includes large eyes.
Yes. Because Kongray was a mess with its eye, right? Like it wasn't a complete circle.
It was pretty ragged. It was pretty ragged.
All right. Andrew asks if there's a chance that it will make a secondary landfall in Ilocos Norte or Apayao. Those are going to be, I'll highlight them for you. Those are going to be these areas. And I think it's pretty confident that it's not going to make another landfall down over here.
No, that's not going to happen.
But still, though, strong winds. Signal 4 warnings in effect for there.
Yeah, they're going to be getting some strong typhoon force winds there, but they can relax and breathe. They're not going to be getting the worst of this thing. This ain't going to be your man cut. This went a little bit north this time. I'm just gonna. That's basically what it is. This is man cut. It went north. So
yes,
this is what man cut would have became had it entered the Luzon Strait.
Yep. Grenadines says, do you think Gabrielle could become a Category 4? So, Riley, after looking at it more, and looking at its now starting to interact with the jet more, well, what do you think now?
It has two benefits. One is that it's interacting with a jet, and two, it has recon.
Yes.
So, given that, I think maybe there's a possibility of a low-end Cat 4 peak briefly, but at the time I wouldn't forecast it, but I would mention its possibility.
Yes, as like a higher-end solution.
Yeah, basically. I think that within the next 12 hours, you will know. If within the next 12 hours it can form a coherent eyewall and eye structure, then you've got a pretty okay shot at that. Speaking of Cat 4, I want to bring up a storm that I feel wasn't done justice by the National Hurricane Center. I would like to bring up Alex 2004.
All right.
This storm, I believe, strongly was a Category 4. In fact, I have it placed at 125 knots because of the impressive structure of a B ring. 105.
Oh, wow, okay.
But Here, I'm gonna see if I can pull up the imagery.
I remember doing analysis on that. I didn't think I had it much stronger. I guess I should have gone stronger with it.
Well, I at first I didn't until I took a deeper look into it, and it's pretty impressive. So this right here, let me send it in the chat.
All right.
I'm gonna send the microwave and the IR. And for this latitude, it is super impressive.
Real quickly, since we're getting more people coming in, just remember if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat. If you want to stay updated on other Philippine typhoons or Hong Kong typhoons or any storm really, be sure to subscribe and also like this stream if you've been here for a while. Really helps us get the word out. And I'll pull that up on stream now. Alex 2004. Yeah, I saw that it looked pretty solid there. So you think it was stronger than just mid-range Cat 3?
Yes.
I could see a case for Cat 4. Did we have Recon in?
Huh?
Do we have Recon in this storm?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so I could see that.
Yeah. It was pretty impressive though. It wasn't wait a minute here. I've got Dvorak.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
Basically, the fast movement speed and the jet interaction does so much for this.
Yes.
Look at that. We have an eye temperature that is at the WMG mark at 39 latitude.
Yes, very
39 latitude, we've got a complete donut. So that's why I believe that it was higher than 105.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any proof of that, and I don't know what led me to bringing that up, because I know what I do, because that's the example I use of a Haiyan Cat 4 in Atlantic.
Yes.
But anyways, yeah, there you go.
Yep. Mackenzie mentions that the next Pagasa update is going to be at 11 a.m., so in around 40 minutes. Johannes mentions a storm that we have not covered yet. What about, how about Tropical Storm Narda? What are your thoughts on that? I feel like it could become a hurricane or major hurricane. What do you think, Riley?
It's very likely to become a hurricane, and I mean, usually, if there's something you've ever noticed in the EPAC, storms don't, like Cat 2s and the EPAC just aren't a thing, it seems. It seems like storms either become Cat 1s or Cat 4s. In the EPAC, it seems like Cat 2, Cat 3 as a peak just doesn't really happen that much. So, I don't know. I'm kind of inclined to believe that it'll become a major. The EPAC has done pretty well, given, all the things that normally would work against it. It's been kind of the most active basin in terms of to average. It's got more ace at this point than WPAC for about probably 18 more hours. Mm-hmm. But in terms of compared to average, it's done the best of all the three major basins.
Yep. Brian Maxwell's in the chat. They're saying good points there. The combo of the jet plus Recon enhances our chances of hitting Cat 3 or 4. Yep.
Yeah. Because Recon helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When you have direct observations, it helps a lot. Why do you think that this? Right here. I would not think this is as strong as it was without the observations that we had this morning.
Yes. Oh yeah, and yes, Brian Maxwell. I've seen you before. I think I follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, he's on Twitter.
Yes, I was like, I swear I recognize that name. Pretty cool to see him joining in the chat. And yeah, he was mentioning that Oscar last year likely got lowballed.
What's that?
That storm, Oscar. Was it Oscar? Yeah, I think so. That was like the Cat 1.
Yeah, I do. It moved like southwest into Cuba. Right?
Yes, that one. It was a Cat 1, I think.
I don't think so.
Oh no, I mean what the Hurricane Center went with.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, that should have been. Some have it at a Cat 3. I go with upper end too.
Yes, same here.
But it was definitely more than 80 knots.
Yes.
It should have been put at 90. in the
Yes.
post.
Let's see here. Mackenzie mentions that there's some reports of already seeing storm surge in Apari in Babuin Island. So yeah, already getting reports of surge there. That makes sense. Let's see if we have any new updates on here. Just seeing how close the eye is. Okay, don't have any really recent update. This was the latest frame here, and it looks like they're in that moat. This was as of around maybe 20 minutes ago or so. They're in this kind of moat. Would you say that the winds are calmer in this area?
The wind would be calmer in the moat, but I mean, you may still have some high winds in there because you're just seeing an area that is absent of convection and rainfall. I mean, well, it's not really absent of convection if you look on satellite, but absent of rainfall. But you're still going to have some winds in there, but it's going to be the lower point between the two wind maximums of the two eyewalls.
Yep. But yeah, we're seeing that eye continue to creep closer and closer. Oops. Forecast there. Okay. Yeah, the Eyewall starting to approach the island. What radar is it? Okay, this is from Taiwan's radar. Is that correct? I guess
Yep.
this high res. Wow. Okay, it's being able to scan it that far away. That's pretty impressive. Batanas Islands are getting a beating there. Basco as well. That's from the rain shield, right?
Yep.
Ooh, and look at this band that you were mentioning earlier now starting to approach Taiwan there. Getting closer and closer there, and that has some pretty heavy rainfall rates there, so we could see some flash flooding parts of southern Taiwan. And look at
I've
this.
got- I've got people in my chat room that are saying the storm chasers need to get on to Bunyan Island. I don't think he can get onto Bunyan Island.
No.
If he's really being honest with himself, he probably shouldn't, even if he was able to.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real, right? I know he's a storm chaser, but there becomes a certain point where he's got to realize I might not survive this one.
Yes. So yeah, I did want to mention though that the eastern Taiwan is starting to get some of those showers now hitting the coast there from one of those outer bands. So yeah, the flood threats is already starting along eastern Taiwan, where we could see major impacts.
Yeah, and you'll see, several rounds on and off
Yes.
of those convective bands coming in, because a system like this, with all the moisture and fuel that it had at its disposal, it obviously made use of it, and in the process that it did so, it has a lot of banding features as well, like most monsoonal origin systems do. So as you are going to see these bands come and go, you're going to get strong bands of wind and rain. Then you might die down for a bit, but it probably won't be long before another one comes in, and this will be on and off for the next couple days.
Yes. It doesn't necessarily matter how heavy the rain is at times. It matters how long the rain happens for.
Correct. Most flooding issues that are caused come from consistent rainfall, even if it's not heavy rain. Like if it rains heavy for 30 minutes and then it doesn't rain for 12 hours, the ground and drainage and all that has time to soak all that up and compensate
Yes.
for that. But when you have consistent rainfall, obviously if you had consistent heavy rain, it'd be worse. But consistent rain is something that is not good when it comes to flooding, because the water levels just rise and rise. That doesn't allow things to recover.
Yes. Mackenzie mentions that there's strong wind reports in Gonzaga in Cagayan. That's right here, where my mouse is hovering over. So we're already getting strong winds there. That would make sense. Areas over here, tropical storm force.
I wouldn't be surprised if those areas are experiencing typhoon force winds, and are certainly at least experiencing typhoon force gusts now, because not only do we have an immense size of the system, but we also have it trying to take on another double eyewall structure. So the southern half of that eyewall, which right now is kind of really just coalescing into an organized band that should eventually become an outer eyewall, but still, that's an intense band there, and that's probably producing as we are seeing some pretty strong winds.
This purple coloring is the estimated typhoon force wind, so they're very close, if not already getting that.
Yeah, and you got elevation in those areas too. So while you have land friction, in this case you have elevation, and that's counteracting that. And in the higher elevations, you're going to see higher gusts. So it's very likely that in the higher gusts, right there on the very extreme northern Luzon coastline, typhoon force gusts can be expected.
Yes, definitely. Maybe even major typhoon force in some of the northeastern
occasionally it can happen. Yeah.
So I'm gonna pull up.
Sustained. They are dodging the worst of it here. Like I said,
yes,
this is what I would compare for extreme northern Luzon. Even though they are going to see a lot of rain, some surge, and some wind, this is like if Man-Cut missed you. So it's not as bad as it could have been, but it's still pretty bad. But obviously, pray for your neighbors up there to the north of those islands, because that right there, hopefully they really prepared for that, because that's hard to survive if they didn't.
Yes. Trying to pull up some of these imagery, seeing if I can find anything. It looks kind of good. Okay, I'll just do this one then. You can see the mesovortices that you were mentioning earlier. This is the closest. Yep. This is 9 minutes ago of where it was located at.
That's crazy. Look at that. If you had a definition of large eye and a textbook, this would not be in the textbook. This would be on the front page of it. This would be the cover image. That is wild right there. It's like I said, and I said this earlier, it's almost like Dorian for these islands. The only thing that's different is thankfully it's not stalling over them, because if it was stalling, then it would just prolong these problems so much worse. But in every other aspect, I mean, this is basically like Dorian for these people.
Well, yeah, and you can clearly see that stadium in it as well. You slow it down a bit. It looks like it does a little bit of a wobble. You could see how this, on the eastern side, it wobbles a little bit, I'd say. Right? So as in it tilts. Would you say? Or is that due to the sun, or... I don't know, it looks like
About 10 more minutes, I'm going to be off of here.
Yep.
What?
Never mind. It looked like that it was tilting a little bit on that eastern side, like a little bit of a wobble. Looking at the high resolution imagery.
It's probably just either an angle distortion or just like the way the convection's wrapping around. It's making it kind of look like if it's not stadiumed on that side. I see what you're saying, though.
Yes.
I think it's mostly just the convection, the way that it is, and the way that it's viewing it.
Yes.
Are you using Himawari or are you using G2KA?
I'm using Himawari on this one, the target.
Okay, when you get west of 130, use GK2A. It's because it's positioned over Korea. Himawari's positioned over Japan, so you'll get a better satellite viewing angle.
But do we have as quick of updates?
That's true. That's also true. I mean, it's not enough of an angle where it should be a big problem. Once it gets closer to China, though, I would switch to the other one.
Yes. I don't know if it's on here. What's it called again? GeoCompsat, right?
Yeah, GeoCompsat.
I know it's on RAMB, but I don't think it's on this website, unfortunately. I know what you're talking about. I've used that before. But wow, yeah, getting very close now on this imagery, but this imagery is around 30 minutes ago, and if we go 30 minutes prior, yeah, they're probably entering the edge of the eye.
GeoCompsat 2A is what you're looking for. So we have peaked. In my opinion, we have peaked. So just noting that, but I mean, obviously we're still at whatever intensity, Yep.
Let's see what other questions there are. Ooh, okay, we do have more questions here. What category is Gabrielle going to be? Cat 2 to 4 looks like.
Well, I mean, Gabrielle is the female version of Gabriel's.
Yes.
You're not. I'm thinking a 3 with a shot at a 4.
Yes. Farhia asks, what do you think the pressure is of, I believe, this storm, Ragasa?
I mean, I think it's somewhere between 890 to 895, and that's simply because of the observations of earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The Japan Meteorological Agency, the official word of the basin, went with 905 just now. They went with 905.
Okay.
So that's definitely on the higher end, given the fact that we had those observations, but the range is closing in. Probably somewhere, let's just say around 900 millibar.
Yep. See, Haiyan is already seeing storm surge, apparently. Farhia asks, what do you think is going to be the peak surge, and what is the current miles per hour in millibars? Well, if we look at that surge graphic here, over 3 meters of surge is expected for the Batanes Islands, the Babuin Islands, and northern Cagayan and Ilocos Norte. So we could see over 4 meters just given this. Maybe 5 meters in some of these areas. Because these areas in the Babuin Islands are going to get higher surge than the northern Luzon. So I'd say at least 4 meters in those areas for surge. And miles per hour for the winds around 175 miles per hour. And in around the 890s millibars, would you say, Riley?
Yep, somewhere between 890 to 900 is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Is this the strongest tropical cyclone worldwide so far in 2025? The competition for this storm
Easily.
in its peak is Eyewall, which by pressure this is lower, but by winds Eyewall was around, I think, 155 knots or 160. Let me think about that. It was 155 knots, I think, is what Eyewall was.
Probably. This is probably on par.
Yep. Or wait, hold on. Let me do some math. Yeah, 155 knots. Okay, yes. So yeah, probably just barely a bit stronger than Eyewall. So this would be the strongest tropical cyclone of the year so far. And Riley, I want to ask you your predictions. Do you think we're going to get a stronger storm than this later in the year? In the southern hemisphere and wherever,
I
just
knew
globally.
this was. I knew this was coming. I even asked this. I asked myself this earlier today, knowing what this would reach.
Yes.
I'm going to say no, but I think that you're going to see the JTWC put a storm higher because for cold season cloud top purposes. I mean, it's possible we could have if there's something that you don't bet against. It's the Western Pacific.
Yes.
And the months that end with BER, you never bet against the Western Pacific, and months that end with BER.
Yes.
So, I mean, it does what it wants to do. If it wants to produce something stronger, it will say screw you, even to someone like me. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not going to bet against this basin, but
yes,
it's also hard to beat this. So, that's really the only answer you can give. If I had to give a guess, I'm going to say this is going to be the one for 2025. Okay. If I had to say yes, I'm going to say this is the one. But I think the West.
Then, like 2 weeks from now, we're going to see Bulavan Part 2 or something crazy.
I do think there will be another Category 5, though.
Yes. And you're thinking in the Western Pacific, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, these islands got hit hard by Doksuri 2 years ago. Do you remember that storm much, Riley?
Yeah. So Doksuri was it was a large eye, obviously not as large as this and not as strong as this. It came from a large monsoonal precursor disturbance. It went over these islands, and it kind of slowed down, but also kind of tracked right over them, and was touching Luzon. It got to a point where it started to get a little bit of continental dry air into it and started upwelling. Mm-hmm. But it created a lot of bad impacts for these islands. Several days, it remained stalled there in the Luzon Strait. Consistent rainfall, surge they had. and overall really bad weather for a while. Eventually, the storm ended up pulling away,
Yeah.
intensifying a little bit before it hit China.
Yes. And that was pretty costly, right? Especially for China, was it?
Yes, it was one of the most costly ones. And right now, unfortunately, these same islands that obviously, are having to deal with, that had to deal with Doksuri, are unfortunately right now being whacked at peak intensity by this. So,
And maybe China as well, those same areas. And so we
no,
could see. Hmm?
you reached your limit usage on real Earth.
Yes, you can see that. Okay.
Okay, all you got to do is close the browser, put it in incognito mode, and reload it.
Oh, that works. Oh well,
Yes.
I can't really show
Good.
it on stream there, just because I have it on this window.
Oh,
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
that would reset it though.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I'm fine having it up here. Still, we can see what's going on.
I'm gonna get off of here in about probably 10 minutes.
Yes, but this is better than Rambee's imagery for infrared, in my opinion. We can see the exact pixels and where they're located at a very high quality.
The Bunyan Island's now breaking into the eye.
Yes. Let's see if we have a new update to this frame or not. Not a new frame here just yet, but yeah, this was around 30 minutes ago now, and then if we go to 30 minutes prior to there, so yeah, definitely getting closer to that eye. From 30 minutes ago, it was located around 10 miles or 9 miles away from the eye, and the center located at around 29 miles away from the eye. And it was moving at, let's see if we go to an hour, moving at around 15 miles an hour. So yeah, minus a half of that. So yeah, within around the next 15 minutes or so, it should be approaching the edge of the eye. So conditions should begin to calm down. You guys will get a break for a little bit before conditions deteriorate again in the next several hours. See what else? Any update in the South Indian Ocean? I don't think so. Not a whole lot going on there.
No, but there's been more going on there than in some other places.
Yes, Atlantic.
I would have never thought I would see that happening.
Yes.
I mean, they literally have like 5 storms there.
Yes.
I know that they have 3 officially.
Yep. What time do you think Nando will hit the Babuin Island? Because Pegasa said just today,
Right
as of
now.
8 a.m., it is 160 kilometers east of Haiyan. He's talking about this island, I think. I'm not sure. It will be probably landfall in 2.5 hours or so, or less, for that northeasternmost island.
That one right there?
Yes.
That's Bunyan Island. They're breaking into the eye
Yes.
now. They're breaking into the eye now. They are going to see landfall. And the next, I mean, the eye is so large. Wait till it hits the center of the eye. I mean, they're literally going to be breaking into the eye in like 45 minutes.
Yes. So. Oh, I was saying around 15 minutes or so they're going to break into it, because this imagery is around 20 or 30 minutes out of date.
True. Considering that, then yes.
So here's where it was 30 minutes ago, and then if you compare it to 30 minutes from now, roughly around 8 miles closer, and they are around 9 miles away. So yeah, they're very close to the edge of the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they're asking about Errol. It's ERROL, I think, or EROLL. I forget the name, but I have an animation on that storm. They were typing ERYL. Yeah, not Aaron. Aaron was not stronger than this storm, I don't think. Aaron was weaker. Because people forget about Errol. That was the storm by Australia. I don't know if you remember that. Really?
I've seen so many posts. When Ragasa was forming, they're like, will Ragasa become the strongest storm ahead of Aaron? And then somebody else made a poll. like literally 20 minutes ago. What's the storm of the year? Ragasa has the most votes, as I'd hope. It
Yes.
says Ragasa, Errol, Aaron, or Eric.
Yes.
Or no, instead of Errol on there, it has Kiko. And I said, why is the only other of 3 Category 5s not on here of Errol? He's like, oh, I didn't even know it existed.
Wow. Yeah. Man, that was an interesting storm. What was by Australia?
That was probably quite literally a case of unbusting. Of that, it quite literally, if there is a storm that unbusted, that's it. Like if there's an Atlantic season that unbusted, last year is it.
Yes.
It remains to be seen if this year unbusts. But as of right now, it's not looking as good as it did for. But I do think October will be above average in Atlantic.
Yes. Kyrie says, so we have another area of low pressure that has a medium chance of becoming a tropical depression. I'd argue a little bit higher. I personally went with 80% chance of development, 40% over the next 48 hours.
I think NHC is I think what it is what happened with 91L, and then with the Gabrielle thing not being a system for like a day and a half or 2 days after it actually was. I think that they're being a little bit conservative, which I do get that.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the Western Pacific, or 92W.
Oh, 92W?
Yes.
Oh, 92W, yeah. Well, it's worth noting something. That the JTWC formation chances that they give out, those are based on the next 24 hours.
Yes, and same with Pegasa.
The same with, yeah.
Yes.
Well, Pegasa tends to be conservative as an agency overall early on, from what I've noticed. They tend to be quite bearish on a system's intensity and stuff. Like with Nando here, it almost gets to a point where they are way too conservative. They barely forecasted it to be a typhoon in the first advisory.
Yeah. Briefly touching on 92W again, though, here. Likely to become or potentially going to become a typhoon at the very least when it nears the Philippines. Likely on the earliest would be on Thursday, I believe, moving through on Friday and leaving by Saturday. So it looks like Thursday, Friday, Saturday are going to be the worst days of this system, mainly for the central Philippines, including Manila.
Yep. Widespread rainfall. And, when it comes to Manila, I think they can also expect tropical storm force winds. If it takes that general consensus track, they should be prepared for tropical storm force winds and isolated to heavy rainfalls.
Yes, some of these ensembles are showing nearly major typhoon near Manila, and then some strong typhoon south of it. So again, there's a lot of possibilities, and that's why we'll need to be monitoring this over the coming days.
Yep.
And then now the chatter's like, oh, Errol, yeah, I remember that storm now. It's been a while. Been a lot of quietness, I'd say, across the northern hemisphere that we've forgotten about the southern hemisphere.
Yep.
Let's see, yeah, Mr. Peach says Ragasa and Errol are the storms of the year. Yeah, people are saying hashtag justice for Narda. That storm. Just not a lot of commentary about that storm.
No. But I think that there will be, I don't know. I think that there'll be some attention on it because it'll end up becoming a major, and then 92W probably won't be as much tracked unless it, who knows,
Yeah.
So I think it'll get a little bit of attention eventually.
Yes. Kyrie says that the storms of the year are Aaron and Ragasa. Which one do you think is more notable, Aaron or Errol?
Notable?
Yes, or I guess, I don't know.
Well, I would say Aaron because without Errol, Australian still has a good season. Without Aaron, I mean, I could. Do I need to say anything else?
Yes. I get it.
So I mean, notable in terms of Aaron's notable, but it's not as notable. Like in 3 or 4 seasons from now, it's not going to be a widely remembered storm because it didn't hit anybody.
Hmm.
They you know what I'm saying? It's a
Yes,
notable storm because it's the most notable one of the Atlantic season.
exactly.
But on an overall perspective, it's not notable. But in the sense that of that regard, yeah, it's notable.
Hmm. Let's see. Farhia ask, does this count as an official landfall? Well, for Bagasa's standards, it would, right, if the
Yeah.
edge of the eye is touching it. Isn't that correct?
Yes, Ragasa has a different standard. They consider when the eyewall touches, and an example of this discrepancy can be seen in 2015 Typhoon Newell. It passed really close to that northern tip of extreme northeastern Luzon,
Hmm.
and Pagasa declared a landfall, while your standard agencies did not. So, by Pagasa standards, this is basically making landfall now, but it's going to end up making landfall by all standards, because it's going to be in the eye.
Yes. Just wondering if the actual center is going to move over the island because it might just thread the needle and go to the south of it.
Yeah, it might, but I mean, being in the eye, when it comes to islands, some people are debatable if they even consider it landfalls.
Yes.
But here's the thing: it's a land, so it's kind of landfall by definition. It is, but I get their argument.
Hmm.
In the case of an island, I think if it gets in the eye at all, it can be pretty much considered in that case.
Yes. If I think of it like this: if the entire island is surrounded by the eye, I can count that as a landfall.
Yeah,
Just my opinion on the matter there.
yeah. Being in the eye, I mean, in an island,
Hmm.
you know, yeah.
I mean, I think of that with Irma as well, where some of the islands would be, of course, completely surrounded by the eye, but some of them would not get like a direct center pass. It maybe like only on the southern half of the eye that the island gets in. But still, I'd count that as a landfall. Just if you're completely surrounded by the eye, you're kind of a landfall. I'd say. I don't know. It just makes sense to me, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't fully agree with the edge of the eye touching.
Yeah, I think that's too. I don't like that standard either. I
Yeah.
think the center of the eye is good for any island, especially in a huge eye like this. If you're in the eye, we'll give it to you. You got the landfall, but
Yes.
I don't know about that one either. About the eye wall coming ashore.
Yeah.
It's all speculation. It's all a standard. I just don't know of any. I just don't know of that standard to um be different on any other agency.
Yes.
So
So is Pegasa really the only one who does that?
as far as I know,
Hmm. That's interesting. I find it interesting how Pegasa does their signal warnings and things like that. These signal warnings only became signal 4 or 5 just 12 hours before. Um, and that can sometimes catch people off guard
yep,
because they were
it
going to
does.
sleep with only signal 2 or 3 warnings and then they wake up to signal 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's like I said, Pagasa tends to be pretty conservative
Yes.
early on until they're certain something's going to happen. So, not always the best approach. I mean, I am probably on the more conservative side sometimes than some people are,
Hmm.
but I think in this case, I think Pagasa could have done slightly better at doing that quicker to get the words out quicker. But again, I'm not in their forecasting center to know exactly what's going on.
Yes.
But the sooner you're able to get warnings out, the better. At this point, obviously, there's no leaving the island. You got to hunker down.
Exactly. And a sturdy structure, like you're saying. What kind of structures do you think can survive 200-mile-an-hour winds?
Not many. It has to be a well-built concrete structure. reinforced by rebar, up to code standard, built with the right foundation ties and all that stuff. So most of these islands have, the only thing that I can say is that they are typhoon prone enough to where I think there would be at least one good shelter on each of these islands. That's
Yes.
what I would hope.
Would you say that they'd evacuate the islands? Do they do that? Do you know of?
Well,
or like people
they
will
do,
evacuate?
but I don't think in the case of the Babunian Island they did, because that's mostly a village and a tribe.
Okay. Mr. Peach says, I mean, structures in the Bahamas had concrete structures, and then talking about Dorian, just how they can be devastated.
They can be, and if you get in a concrete structure that gets destroyed, you're like, whoa. But all you can do is go to the best well-structured building. There is buildings out there that can handle these storms, and there are some of them, but I'm not exactly sure these islands. I know Taiwan has some pretty typhoon-proof buildings, and so does Guam and Okinawa and stuff. I've seen
it costs a lot.
A picture. I've seen videos of somebody in a building in Haiyan. He stands and he shows the wall, and when the camera pans one way, you can see like the concrete is 2 feet thick inside the building that he's in. And he even said in the video, he said concrete walls shaking.
Yeah.
So, it's, even if you're in a secure building, it's got to be a pretty scary feeling.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we're getting closer and closer to landfall. Yeah, that 2-hour estimate may be a little bit too high. I guess, like, what I meant by that countdown is mainly the center going through, but if we go back, like, 2 hours before, we can see where it's gone and kind of extrapolate that forward. It moved around 28 miles in those 2 hours, and it was around 25 miles away, 26 miles away, and this is 30 minutes out of date. So probably 1.5 hours or so, I'd say. I'm going to cut that timer down to 90 minutes, I think. Do you think that's a good estimate? Or at least lowering it from 2 hours?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be the first to admit that I probably said when I got here, I think it's going to be longer, when in reality it's now trending towards less.
Yes.
But yeah, about 5 more minutes I've got here. So is there anything you'd like to ask me or anything before I get off here for the night?
The forward speed, is it moving quicker than forecast? It looks like it's moving pretty much as expected now on the latest forecast here. But like overall, has it been moving slower, quicker? What do you think?
I think slightly, maybe a wee bit slower, if anything.
Yes, that's what I've been thinking as well.
But it's not. But it's not significant. It's actually been moving mostly as forecasted.
Yes.
There's been some slight wobbles, to the south, and it's moving mostly along at the forecasted speed. But if anything, I would say it's been just a tad slower than expected. But it's pretty insignificant. Like, I'm talking only the difference of probably a couple miles, every 6-hour point.
Yes. Mr. Peach says this has been the longest 5 to 10 minutes, Riley. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
I'll probably give you one more question before you go. Let's see. Next year's Western Pacific season, what do you think that's going to be like? In terms of, is it going to be average, above average, below average?
I wish I knew. I mean, there's some signs that La Nina could collapse after like March and April, but you're already in an unpredictability time frame. You're looking at something that's 6 months out from that spring unpredictability barrier. Yes. And once you're past that, then that's when you'll know. But there's one thing that I do know that'll happen. If it's a La Nina, the season will start off inactive. There's going to be everybody hating and doubting. And then they're going to, as always, in late September and in October, they're going to eat their words of the doubts.
Yes.
That's my prediction of the Western Pacific, basically every typhoon season from now on. That's basically my prediction, is that people will doubt and hate, and then the King WPAC will show them who's boss and who's really in charge, and will make them eat their words in the end,
Yes.
as it always does.
Always does that year after year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Riley, for your help with the coverage. That was like 2.5 hours, I think, of help. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was nice to be on here. Obviously, there's probably going to be the need for another one, especially as it approaches the Lights Out Peninsula and makes its landfall there. And
yes,
I'd like to be a part of that one as well.
Definitely.
Because that's going to be a pretty significant landfall as well. So
yes.
Until the next time, everybody out there that's in the path of this storm, stay safe. And, anyone that's in the Philippines, the central Philippines, keep an eye out, because next week there could be another one headed your way.
92W. Yes.
92W, yep. And for the people out there in the Atlantic, hold your head high. It'll get better in October.
Yes.
With that being said,
people are saying bye, Riley. Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me on here.
Of course.
I'd like to give thanks to Chase for allowing me to be in the stream, and looking forward to the next one.
Yes. Love the master of the Western Pacific Basin joining us in the live coverage on a Western Pacific typhoon. So thank you, Riley. All right. Let's see, Sharkius, are you still here? He's muted, but let's see, he'll probably get back soon. But yeah, pretty nice seeing Riley there. Of course, we're still going to be doing coverage, just because the system is still approaching landfall. But yeah, always nice to see Riley around here, especially on these systems in the Western Pacific. Love his insight on it. I'm going to see if Sharkius is almost here. Just seeing if he's ready. Otherwise, I'll go more in depth and we'll go through this stuff again. It looks like the Pagasa update's going to be out any moment now. Oh geez, did I miss my Twitter post going viral? Let me just make sure. That was a while ago. Whoops, okay. I think, let me just make sure that was an hour ago. Whoops, did not answer that question in time. Okay, just going to see if the Pagasa update's out yet. If you guys see the Pagasa update before me, let me know. Okay, I see it there. I think so. Let me just refresh it. This might be the older one that I'm looking at. No, I see the new one. Yes, okay, this is the new one. I'm gonna make a quick post about this, and then I'll share it with you all. There are still Signal 5 warnings and Signal 4 warnings along the coast. I'm just going to get this up real quick, just so I can share a little bit of a loop online about it. Dang, okay, does this not want to work? Okay, I'll just get the image right before landfall then, like that. And then I'm just going to post it in the replies. So it says life-threatening conditions are imminent over the northern portions of northern Luzon as Nando approaches the Babuin Islands. Alright, gonna just post that real quick. Yep, so Signal 5 warnings in effect for the entirety of the Babuin Islands. I'll bring this up real quick so we can see the change in the forecast cone. I don't know if there's been much, but here. This was their last forecast. No, that was as of 2 a.m. Whoops. Anyways, here is a look at their latest forecast here, staying a super typhoon even south of Hong Kong now. Wasn't predicting that before. Now it is predicting a super typhoon to be south of Hong Kong. That's pretty bad. But yeah, you can see those at least storm force winds impacting northeastern Luzon there, the Babuan Islands and the Batanes Islands now. Now if we take a look at the updated signal warnings here, we can see now Signal 5 warnings are in effect for the entirety of the Babuan Islands. Signal 4 warnings in effect for northern Cagayan and northern Ilocos Norte and southeastern Batanes Island. Signal 3 warnings are in effect for the northernmost Batanes Island, most of Ilocos Norte, most of northern Apayao, and mostly central Cagayan, with Signal 2 warnings in effect for northern Luzon and Signal 1 warnings in effect for central and southern Luzon. Alright. I'm just going to see how my post is doing because I have so many notifications now, I don't know what they're about. Just seeing if nothing went crazy viral. Okay, good. Yes. Yep, and real quickly I'm going to look at the Facebook post I made off stream just to see how that went. Oh wow, okay. Nice. Alright. Benguet's signal 1 to 2 warning. I'll pull that up again on here. Yep. Benguet's there in that signal 1 to 2. I'm going to save this and we're going to update that chart on the stream. I'm curious who the top fans are here. It says Gaming with Trippin H, Mac, and Joe Hands are the top fans in terms of chatting. Thank you all so much for your support. Alright, just let's see. Babuan Islands has entered the eye. Alright. I'm just going to update this real quick. And then in theory, this should get updated a little bit more. So then we can show something like that, and I will shrink it a bit. There we go. I would like to make a poll real quick that I forgot to do earlier, just because there was so much going on. Let's see. What signal warning are you under? Then I'll do signal 5, signal 4, and then mainly signal 1 through 3, and then none. Just something I'm curious about. Now, what is this Q&A feature? I want to see this. Hold on, I'm just wondering if there's a way that you all can answer viewer questions live. Okay, I'll try this. I have not tried this before, so I'll do any questions about local areas. Okay, what the heck just happened to my live stream? Okay. Now I can't see the chat anymore. Great. I'll refresh it. Just trying to use buggy YouTube and their Q&A feature. This would be great though if it works to more easily answer questions. So, how do I... Okay, I guess it's just there. I'm not sure how this works exactly. Alright, anyways, I'll just pull up satellite imagery on the storm again. Let's see, where is it? It's going to be right here. Let's see if there's a new frame here. No, this is still 38 minutes out of date. But yeah, the island is definitely entering in the eye now, I would say, because it's around 38 minutes out of dates. So I'd say they are going to be in the eye now. Yes, winds are around 175 miles an hour. Mackenzie asks, there's no warnings in, Mackenzie says Metro Manila doesn't have any warnings yet. Yeah, they could get some heavy rain though still. Let's look at the poll here. Oh, okay, so I'm in the Signal 5 warning, is that correct? Oh, whoa, okay, something's working now, I think. Um, wait, so, hold on, how is this working? Oh, I see it now, okay. This is so cool. I can see your guys' chats, in the questions. That's interesting. So how the heck do you even go there, I guess? Here, I need to figure this out because I want to make sure people can easily ask questions. So guys, when you're watching the stream, how do you get to that option to select, I don't know, where to chat, I guess? Um, because I don't see where to go on mobile. Maybe I'll try using a different account. Maybe this will work. Ooh, okay, I can see some things now. Um, I just see the poll. I don't see anything else on here. Yeah, so I'm probably going to turn off the Q&A. But yes, I'll answer some of the questions there. What is the forecasted rainfall for Benguet today? Let's look at that area. Oops, I think the loop I was running was of the wrong thing. I don't know. Anyways, Benguet is going to be, I'll pull it up on here. Oh, let's actually see if we have a radar frame first. And also let me just swap back to my main account on there. Oh, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. We're closing in on 2.8 thousand subscribers. That would mean the world to me to reach. Would make me the third largest animation channel on YouTube. And really the second one that's active. Alright, so yeah, and we can see now that's Eyewall beginning to approach land there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about this radar loop. Anyways, though, just pulling up weather radar on here. Yes, okay. Let's see. Yeah, let me pull up the questions again. So it was asking about Benguet. Benguet is going to be located. I'll pull it up on the map here. Benguet is that one. Okay, near La Union. So I believe this one right here. Currently getting some rainfall right now, some heavy showers and possible thunderstorms. Now let's look at their rainfall accumulation. You asked for today, or the next day. If we go over the next 24 hours from now, the European run shows 150 millimeters. The American run shows lower totals of around 80, and the German run shows totals of around 50. So maybe 25 to 200 millimeters of rain are going to be possible today for you. The northernmost Babuan Island is almost fully in the eye. Oops, yes, on here. Let me load up the most recent frames on here. And certainly in that stadium effect there. Yes, on here. Look at that now. Now they're at the edge of the eye. This was around 24 minutes ago. How much rainfall in Taiwan? Let's cover that. If we go on windy here and we look at Taiwan's rainfall, now these are the lower resolution models here, showing rainfall totals around 400 millimeters from the German run, maybe totals up to 500 millimeters offshore. The American run showing also 400 to 500 millimeters of rain along the east coast of Taiwan. The European run, lower totals of around 300 to 400 millimeters of rain. But if we look at the very high resolution model from the Japan Meteorological Agency, we can see very high totals of well over 700 millimeters, over 1,000 millimeters of rain. And I need to do a real quick conversion here. Wait, what the heck is the Q&A still going on? Okay, yeah. It's interesting. Let me just gonna do a real quick conversion. Okay, so that's a meter of rain. Wow, okay. Let's see, I'll answer the questions here real quick, and then I'll end the Q&A. Baguio City, Benguet's not a talk. Let me look at that map again. Benguet City? Or Baguio City there. Okay, I'll look at that. Sure. Rainfall there over the next 5 days. Or next day, you asked. Next day on the European run, 130 millimeters of rain. The American run of around 80 millimeters of rain. And the German run around 50. So I'd say maybe 30 to 170 millimeters of rain are going to be possible today for you. Yes, you need to calculate. Yes, I forget some millimeters to meters. My apologies. And then the last question there from Faria asks, will all trees and vegetation be removed? Could the grass be gone? Let's see. Okay, now let me go back to top chat. Can I just do live chat? I'd like to see all messages. Yes, okay. So yeah, I'd say all the grass and things like that could be gone in, or the trees and vegetation could turn to brown on the island. We've seen this happen with Beryl and Irma in storms like that, whenever they strike these islands as a category 4 or 5. Let me close out of that. I'll update this forecast. Ooh, actually it looks a little bit more to the north. I'm not sure. Let me look again. Yeah, I'd say it got nudged more to the north on the latest forecast. Interesting to see the North Indian Ocean being the cone now, that longer range. Interest if Nando can intensify more. I doubt it. At this point, I believe it's already coming off of its peak. If we look at this run here, yeah, I'd say it's coming off of its peak. I'm going to look at Dvorak imagery just to get a little bit of a better idea of satellite estimates. Oops, okay. Froze briefly. All right. Okay, it's pretty much loaded now. Yeah, I'd say it's weakening now, or at least beginning to weaken. Oh man, look at that stadium effect though. How the island's now entered the eye there. Oh dang, so how out of date is that imagery there? Yep, they're in the eye on this one. I'll pull up infrared imagery. Whoops. Yep, they are now in that eye. Wow, okay. Nice, thanks for pointing that out. Say honestly, we could be even less than an hour away. I'd go with 45 minutes at this point for a landfall. Oops. Let me see what I do if I do this. Alright. Okay. Yeah, we are pretty close to a landfall, which means this is happening a little bit earlier than expected. Right there again, though, the island is a little bit on the northern end of that. Man, I really wish that the Ram B, or the Real Earth one, would be more up to date. Huh? Okay. That's interesting. Alright. Guess I'll duplicate it. Maybe it crashed? Okay, I guess not. That's interesting. This is around 21 minutes ago. So I guess for the time being, we'll use Ram B's imagery on it here, starting out with GeoCompSat. Do they have a target? No, they don't. Wow, look at that monster. Still decent imagery here. And if we pull up land on this one, right here, default borders. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh wait, no, I don't mean all that. Can we do something like cities would be nice, but I guess that doesn't work. Okay. Yeah, this imagery is a little bit out of date, but yeah, you can see that powerful eye they're approaching. Those islands. I'll pull up Himawari then. Because I don't know if zenith angle's having an issue with this, but if we go to mesoscale, let's see how up to date this is. This is around 15 minutes old, so not that bad. Okay, I'll turn the color of this to black. That will probably be easier to look at. Yep. So yeah, I think zenith angle's having an issue. Basically, the way that the satellite's positioned, causing those eastern part of the stadium not to look as impressive. What else could I do here? Yeah, so I think that this is a good combination here of these two satellite images. All right. Speed it up just a little bit, so I think. Nope, that's a little bit too much for this. Okay, probably should not have done two at the same time. How do I remove this? Oh, there it is. Whoops, okay. That's how I remove it. All right. Perfect. So again, yes, we are nearing a landfall. Let's see. Okay, this can't go super fast. But yes, we are nearing a landfall. So if that's like that, then how up to date is that other imagery then? That has to be incredibly up to date. Oh dang, yeah, this is only 7 minutes old. Alright, let's answer some more of these questions. 750 hours away from landfall. Let's see, Category 4 for Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Okay, let's see. Is Narda going to be a major hurricane? Well, if we look at some of the model runs on that system, like the HAFS A model run on it, it does have the system becoming a major hurricane, or just below major status. Or actually, no, just at major hurricane status at Narda within the next 5 days or so. So I think they'll up their forecast. Last I checked, their forecast was around 85 knots. And I'll pull it up right now. They've kept it at 85 knots, looks like, for 3 days in a row. All right. Okay, gonna look at some more questions here. I'm gonna charge my phone. I think that that's a good idea. Dang, okay, hold on. I should probably plug in my phone charger. This is what I'm using to read chat, just it's a lot easier to do it that way. Alright, let's look at the other questions there. 750 minutes, okay. Yes. I think that that's the limit. Oh wait, no, it wasn't 750 minutes, that was 750 hours. Let's see here, and we're about to reach 1,000 views on this stream, which is pretty nice. Thank you all so much. Basco Batanas is now in the Eyewall, he said. I'll check. I'm not sure. No, I wouldn't say they're in the Eyewall. They're getting some of the core, but not the main eye that they're, or main Eyewall at least. They're a little bit to the north, but yeah, some of those other islands are starting to get into that Eyewall. The southeastern Babuin Island is getting in it, and that's northwestern one is getting in it as well. Also, I noticed that there was a little bit of a cloud that formed there. You can see that little bit of a blue marking there. but that has since fizzled out mostly. Curious if we can catch that on the RAM imagery here. If we go back to visible, see if we can catch what that was. Nope, just looks like cirrus debris there, just a cirrus cloud that moved through. So not seeing a whole lot with that. Okay, how do I update this? I'm not so sure. Alright, let me look at some more questions though in the meantime. Some severe flooding's going on in Gonzaga, Cagayan. That is going to be located right over here where I'm circling with my mouse. That would make sense. I mean, they are going to get some. They are getting some heavy rain right now. If we look at the weather radar, oh, nice. Yeah, we can see that little bit of a moat, and that's radar imagery there. And yeah, this is a little bit older, I'd say, and this is when they were getting hit by the Eyewall, which they are now in the eye. Yes, radar imagery is now being able to show that eye more clearly, or mainly the Eyewall at least. You can see a fraction of it from the Taiwan radar, and a fraction of it from the Philippines radar. And then you can fill in the gap right in here. And that's your eye. Nothing going on in there. And yes, Cagayan experiencing winds and strong rain. Yes, both strong wind and rain because they are under a signal 4 warning on the northernmost portions of, whoops, this is not the most recent signal warning there. There we go. They are experiencing signal 4 warning conditions right now across the northern portions of Cagayan, although also central portions of Cagayan in that signal 3 warning and southern portions in signal 2 warning. So yeah, definitely strong winds and rain. I would like to pull up their rainfall forecast from Ragasa. Just going to pull up a rainfall forecast for those in the Philippines. Yes, the rainfall advisory number 11 has come out, and I will pull that up. Looks like we got 3 images here to show. So this will be today's rainfall, and I'll briefly discuss that. Wait, is this the same thing here? Yes, okay, so these are just 2 portions of the graphic. Alright. And then I'll open up the third one. And then we'll discuss the rainfall forecast here. So for today, up until September 23rd, this would be probably 11 a.m. to tomorrow at around noon. These areas are going to experience rainfall totals of above 200 millimeters of rain. We have the Batanes Islands, of course, in the Babuan group of islands. We also include Cagayan, Apayao, Abra, and Ilocos Sur in that, and Ilocos Norte. All in those areas of 200 millimeters plus. Widespread incidents of severe flooding and landslides expected, especially in urban areas. So make sure you're ready to get to higher ground in case flash flooding does occur. For rainfall of moderate amounts of around 100 to 200 millimeters, that does include Isabela, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Benguets, and La Union. There's so numerous flooding events are likely, especially in areas that are urbanized, low-lying, or near rivers. Landslides likely in moderate to highly susceptible areas. And then, of course, there's going to be 50 to 100 millimeters of rain in this yellow coloring in Fuego and parts of western Luzon there, including Pangasinan. If we look at the southern portion here, we can see Metro Manila is in that category. Also, western Mindoro is in that 100 to 200 millimeter category, with eastern Mindoro in that 50 to 100 millimeter category. Now, looking at tomorrow's rainfall, this would be from tomorrow noon to Wednesday at noon. Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Benguet, Pangasinan, and Zambales and Batan are going to be in that 50 to 100 millimeter range, including western Mindoro. Right, so total rainfall in around Ilocos Norte, over 250 millimeters of rain. Same for Ilocos Sur. Andrew mentions in the Batanes they're experiencing light winds and light rain. Yep. All right, let's see. Watching both simultaneously. Dedication. Yeah, thank you so much for watching the stream. Andrew asked if I can stay live up until the 2 p.m. update. I'm not sure. I do have a calculus quiz in my college class tomorrow, and it's 11 p.m. for me, by the way. I'm in the United States, so yep, I'd like to get some sleep. I might stay an hour after landfall. We'll see. Might stay until the other island gets into that. In the eye there. Excuse me. In the eye there. After that, then the landfall time will change again. But yeah, we are fairly close to a landfall. I'd say, let's see, we're already halfway there, and then the other half was, yeah, I'd say within 30 minutes or so, or even less, actually. I think, let's see, it was 39, that's 29. No, I think that's a good time estimate. 30 minutes until landfall, including the fact that this is 6 minutes out of date, so yeah, I'd say 30 minutes or so we'll have a Category 5 landfall. We can see that northwestern sides now is starting to fade away. I'll pull up some of that imagery on here. And we'll go to Super Typhoon Ragasa. That must be a crazy sight being there. And then if I select this for Dvorak, now not really breaking a whole lot there on the northwestern side. That would be 69 Celsius. So if we go back to standard infrared. Yeah, closing in though on breaking that ring of white. So I'd say right now it is likely beginning to weaken, but still a powerful Category 5. Likely still with winds of around 155 knots, maybe 150 knots. So that would be around 175 to 180 miles an hour. What is the storm surge? I'll pull that up right now. Storm surge is expected to be 1 to 2 meters for parts of western Ilocos Sur, northwestern Ilocos Sur, and western Ilocos Norte, and eastern Cagayan could see 2 to 3 meters of storm surge. whereas northern Ilocos Norte and northern Cagayan and the Babuan Islands and the Batanes Islands could see more than 3 meters of surge. I'd be willing to argue even more than 4 meters of surge. This is just at least 3 meters, which regardless, both are pretty bad. All right. Huh? What are you asking, tacos? Are you talking to me or who? Honestly, if I can help at least one person be more aware of what's going on, that's a success to me. And the fact that I'm able to help around 27 people right now live and over 1,000 people throughout the stream, that's just, I'm lucky for that. Honestly, with the support I'm getting for this, I'm very happy. Um, with this right here, this has been a pretty successful stream, and I'm glad I get to cover it and try to help people in the path of it, including Hong Kong and China. So, yeah, really just doing this, helping people out. This is helping people out is a passion of mine. Okay, so if you have a problem in that, then okay. Sorry to hear that. Yes. Yep, so I mean, just trying my best to help out those people in the path. Yeah, trying to rage bait. Um, yes, anyways. Thank you guys so much for your help there. Yeah, anyways, it's mostly the Philippines, I'd say, are watching these streams. Like, if I pulled up my YouTube statistics, not going to pull it up on stream, but if I pull them up on the last live stream I've done, I like to look at how many. This one was the one with 1,000 views as well. I'd like to look at the analytics real quick, see what the percentages of people from certain countries. Let's see if the data is out yet. Yeah, so for you asking about that, 57% of people watching were from the Philippines, 9.8% were from Vietnam, and 3.9% were from Hong Kong. So, about how many people were watching in Hong Kong? That last thing, around 32 people from Hong Kong watched that live stream, whereas over 500 people from the Philippines watched it. So, yes, people from Hong Kong will watch those live streams, okay? Shocking, right? But yes, I live in the United States. So, yes, I do my best to help others be more aware. And if you're liking the content, be sure to subscribe. It really helps out a lot. Helps me reach more people. Yes, Johanna, it's common on the internet, but okay. Get out. All right. See you, buddy. I am not going to tolerate that, but I'm gonna take a couple screenshots. of that before I get rid of it there. Just because, um, if there's a rage baiter like that, just point and laugh. Just don't engage with it, I guess. Yep. So I guess, let's see, what should I do with him? I have not had to do moderator actions before, but I guess put user in timeout for 24 hours, why not? But yeah, if you have a problem with what I'm doing, in trying to help people, I guess you can just not watch the stream, I guess. Um, I know I have a lot of support though, so I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. Seeing people like Gaming with Trippin' H, Johannes, Mackenzie, Dark Steve, all you all, thank you all so much for your support. If we have like 1.1 thousand people in total, and there's just one troll, I'm not gonna pay attention to that. Because honestly, this is my dream here, helping others. Stay aware, weather aware of tropical cyclones across the globe. Probably continue doing that the rest of my life. That's my goal. Anyways, yes, the northwesternmost Baboon Island is entering that moat, the stadium there. Thank you, Dark Steve. And yes, Mackenzie. um, okay. Anyways, yeah, any more questions you all have about the system? I will gladly cover it. Oh shoot, hold on, we have a DM from this one again. Let me just make sure. Oops, sorry, okay. Rose for days. Yes, thank you, Mammerds. Really appreciate it. Yes. Um, Mammerds, I think you were one of the people watching me back in November or October of last year and seeing a little bit of my growth in the Philippines since then. I have yet to see the person who first donated to me in stream. I've yet to see them come back. I still have like the name written down and everything, just in case. But yeah, it's nice seeing people like Mammerds, and then there's Gaming with Trippin' H, and then Mackenzie, and then Johannes, and then a bunch of other names that I remember from other streams. This is how you grow your viewer base. You help people, and then you get returning viewers. But I like it. It's not too stressful at this kind of live stream wasn't too stressful. There weren't too many questions. I was worried we wouldn't be able to get to every single question. Thank you, Memords. Yes, I love that kind of support. Thank you. Just knowing what I'm doing helps others. That means a lot. Mackenzie, thank you for pointing that out. So far, no one has died from the typhoon yet, but let's hope it stays that way. Oh yeah, September of last year. Wow. Wow, okay, that was a while ago. So a year ago. Wow. I can't believe a year isn't that long, I guess, but in tropics it is. Well, we've passed the 3.5 hours of streaming mark, and we're likely around 17 minutes away from a landfall. Depending if viewership goes back up, which it might not. Now it's tanked, but depending on what happens there, I may end the stream there, just so I can get some rest. And just remember, though, I will have more updates. Definitely an update tomorrow, or well, yeah, tomorrow morning for you all, discussing the storm as a live stream, mainly covering the impacts in Hong Kong and Hong Kong and China and Vietnam. So there's pink in your area. Oh, you're talking about that right there, these thunderstorms. Oh, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, there are some decent thunderstorms in western Luzon right now. That is by Pangasinan, I believe. Maybe. Let me just double check here. Yeah, La Union and Ilocos Sur and Benguet, those areas. There's some pretty decent thunderstorms down there. And yeah, look at that. You can see the island there in the eye now, the northeastern Babuan Island. And yeah, look at that. You can see the cluster of thunderstorms now moving south in parts of western Luzon there. It's now 11:48, maybe time for you to sleep. No, I'm fine staying awake. I was originally planning to stay up until 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., so really going to sleep, like ending the stream after midnight, like, that's perfect. So what was my highest concurrent viewers here? 43, that's not bad. It was quite interesting starting out the stream, and then, I wasn't paying attention to the viewer count until I pull up my phone. I'm like, oh wow, 20s and 30s people watching at once. 14 minutes until landfall. Yep, 14 and a half minutes likely until landfall, and then we'll play the tradition, the sound effect of a Category 5 landfall. This is pretty rare. Those who are watching this is pretty rare to see, or to hear, actually, for a live stream. The last time we've done that was Hurricane Otis in 2023. So it's been nearly 2 years since that. And it is the strongest landfall I've ever streamed, actually. I forgot about that. Yeah, so this is the strongest tropical cyclone landfall I've ever done before. Ooh, Mackenzie asks, do you think Nando will make it into the North Indian Ocean? If I pull up the Euro AI model forecast on it, I go in time there. Whoops. Let's see. There it is. Probably not. It depends on how north it actually goes. Whoops, this run is a little bit out of date. Yeah, probably not. Same with that next system after it. We could see two disturbances try to develop in the North Indian Ocean. I want to point that out. They're on either side of India. Again, though, these models are pretty good at detecting these kind of tropical systems, tropical cyclones. This northernmost Babuan island is now fully in the eye. Let me see that again. Yes, they are now fully in that eye. Very close to a landfall now. I'd say pretty close. I might cut that landfall time down to 10 minutes now. Let me see what happens if I do this real quick, just as a little bit of an experiment. Okay, well, alright. Okay, I'm experimenting with that countdown. I'd say actually at midnight that we'll get the landfall. I'll adjust this timer so that way it's. Can I do something like this? No, okay, I can't do decimal points. Whoops, sorry. I don't think Nando's made landfall just yet. Oh yes, of course, people are asking about 92W in that European AI model. That's going to be the next system to threaten the Philippines. Speaking of which, I was going to be doing a live stream earlier today discussing that, but then I realized, oh shoot, it's going to make landfall earlier than I thought. There we go, now the timer's pretty much in sync. So yes, that next system may be a threat to the Philippines there. The European AI model, it does become a tropical storm or typhoon, possibly when it nears Manila, for example, before entering in the South China Sea, possibly becoming a typhoon again, maybe Cat 1, Cat 2 in the Gulf of Tonkin near Vietnam. That's in the longer range, but that's within 7 days. Let's try to take it one storm at a time. For those in like Vietnam and stuff. But yeah, the central Philippines should begin to start transitioning their focus from Nando to this next system. Which looks like the Google AI model wants it to become at least a Category 1 typhoon, with some of those ensembles wanting a stronger storm, some of them wanting a Category 4 out of it. That's on the higher end case, but pretty much all of them want a tropical storm at the very least out of it. Again, I've given that an 80% chance of development there of the next 7 days. A 40% chance within the next 48 hours. And the system is located right over there. So currently a broad mess just to the east, northeast, or northeast of Yap, in between Yap and Guam. Is the Super Typhoon Nando or a Ragasa making a landfall at 12:30 today? Possibly at the 2 p.m. today. I think it'd be making a landfall at around noon. Michael says, I'm in Vietnam. Well, good luck. Here's a look at the current forecast there. This will be upped, okay? I want to just reiterate that. These impacts will be upped along the coast of Vietnam, just because now it's shifting more dramatically to the south. That it's looking like it may be more than just a minimal typhoon by the time it's entering the Gulf of Tonkin. So just be prepared for, I'd say, at least moderate impacts, or slight to moderate impacts, if you're in Vietnam, mainly due to wind and rain. Yep, and good luck. And we're around 3.5 minutes away from that landfall. I'll keep showing the imagery of the typhoon. Right there. Very impressive on the infrared imagery. Fortunately, it's not going to weaken the storm a whole lot. Like if it hits a mountainous terrain of Luzon or Taiwan, but fortunately it's not impacting that many people there in the Philippines directly. Yeah, just unfortunately, though, it's not going to weaken a whole lot after striking that island, so we are likely going to see another Category 5 landfall out of this. But yeah, I'd say that the winds are around 155 knots right now, and a pressure in the 890s. Let's see, if 92W becomes a typhoon near Manila, we will be severely impacted by damaging winds and severe flooding. Yes, it is a possibility. Michael says it's raining a lot here in Vietnam. You're mentioning. Um, that is going to be from that's from the remnants of MeTag. So, wow, yeah, that's not even the main system. That's another system. That was the other system I was doing streams about earlier. I did, I believe, 1 or 2 live updates on that storm. So if you're in a tropical prone area and you want to stay up to date across the world of tropics, and if there's anything headed towards your area, be sure to subscribe. So if you see a thumbnail highlighting your area in red, you can just click it and get an update. And then you can ask questions in live chat, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I try to make it simpler, so that way if you see like a red coloring in the map, that you know that you should click on the video just to get an update as to what's going on. 1 minute until landfall. Let's get ready. I'll get the sound effect ready. Alright, I have that ready to go. Alright, so we're about to click the button there. Alright, get ready. And it's a combination of sail and docksarai. Yeah, I get that. Alright, get ready. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Category 5 landfall in the northeasternmost Babuan island with winds of around 155 knots and a pressure in the 890s. Bam. Okay. Now, time to time out the next landfall. Which, let's see, this stayed relatively on track. If I pull this up and I go to, like, I'm sorry. And no, this was a little bit behind there. So if I go, probably in the next 2 hours or so is when the next one will make a landfall. So I'll increase that countdown to 120, since it looks like within the next 2 hours or so is when the next island will be in that eye. So this is the strongest landfall I've ever did live coverage on. Fortunately, it's not in a major populated area, but unfortunately, it's so powerful. Here, you know what? I'm gonna open this thing up on another computer real quick. And I'm gonna try and make a post about it online. If I can. Let's see here. Sorry, I know that you can hear the clicking since I'm not using a mouse. I'm just using a trackpad. Okay, dang. Alright. Thought I could get away with that on this. I tried incognito mode, but it didn't seem to like that. Why isn't that working? Okay. There we go. Okay. Dang it. Alright, never mind. It's still popping up there. Okay. Dang. Alright. I'm just going to save that as an image there. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, that would be very interesting here, seeing blue sky up there in Babuin Island. Let's see, well, Unreal. In all of Cagayan, the power went out. Yep, I believe that. Never heard sound effects of a Cat 5 landfall in stream before, yeah. I don't know if I even did it during Otis. That might have been when I started it. I came back as a Cat 5 from its tropical depression precursor back in 2021. What a ride it has been, yep. Sean asks, can you check on Narda in the Eastern Pacific? Sure. Where do we go? There we go. I'm just going to see if there's a scatterometer pass on the system. Nope, nothing new. So if I pull up the model run again on the system, expected to become a hurricane possibly as early as the next 60 hours or so, before becoming a possible major hurricane within the next 5 days or so. All right. Oh shoot, did I not have the banner at the top? Oh man, okay. Meant to put this on. Dang, alright, that's why I wasn't getting a whole lot of questions about locations. Thought that was up. Let's see, so how long have I been streaming for? 3.5 hours there, and I'd rather not go for stay up that late because it has made landfall. Let's see, how long did it take to go from the edge of the eye to the center? So that's 247. Well, so an hour and 15 minutes it took. So while you had 2.5 hours inside the eye is pretty crazy. Crazy length of time. Probably save some satellite imagery of that tomorrow. Is Gabrielle going to become a Category 3? I'd say that's the most probable case scenario. It could be only a weak Cat 2, or it could be a weak Cat 4. Let's see, as Dark Steve mentions, it's trying to close that gap with the northwestern Eyewall, or northwestern side. I can see what you mean. Oops, okay. I'm going to check what the stream delay is like real quick. If I just click on this and that, and then it would be stream delay is only around 7 seconds. That's not bad at all, really. But yeah, you can see that northwestern side starting to lack there, so I do believe it is weakening. Yes, okay. Yeah, Johanna's good point there. Babuin Islands could get stuck in the eye for 1 to 2 hours because the eye is so large. Yeah, 2.5 hours it seems like. Sean asks, does typhoon count as a hurricane? Kind of. It counts as a Category 1. A hurricane is a Category 1 or greater, and a typhoon is a Category 1 or greater. So yeah, they're pretty much the same thing. It's just where they happen. They're called different things based on where they are. I'm in HCM City. I don't know where that is exactly. HCM City? Ho Chi Minh City. I think that's what you mean. Oh yeah, you should be fine from that next system. It should miss you in Vietnam. And looking in the longer range at the next system after that, should also miss you. I don't see it impacting you. The Eastern Pacific hurricane season is going crazy. Yeah. Right, yeah, it looks like the Western Pacific isn't going to stop. Interesting to see that system very far south of Vietnam. Okay. Don't really believe that. Alright. So I'm probably going to end the stream within the next 5 minutes or so. I would like to... don't go yet. I will explain some things I'd like to talk about. Well, looks like we've gained a decent amount of subscribers. Also, real quickly, if you're watching this stream, just do me a favor and check if you're subscribed real quick. Please, that really helps out a lot. Oh yeah, thank you so much for all the support recently. In terms of most popular streams, this would be, let's see, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. Probably the 11th most watched, or 12th most watched stream that I've had. So not as much as some of these other streams I've done. Which I think it might be just due to the fact that it's not hitting Manila. Let's see. Yes, Narda could become a Cat 3. In Abra, roofs here that are about to be removed due to strong gusts and winds. Yep. Will any typhoon hit me? Michael asks. I don't think so. Not within the next 7 days. Just be sure to follow for updates though, because I will continue covering it. Anyways, I'd like to go over a brief overview of the tropics and when the next stream will likely be. Starting from least threatening to most threatening across the globe of tropics. And don't worry, don't instantly leave. I'll wrap this up real quick. From the least threatening, I'd say that would have to be Narda. Expected to become a Cat 3 or Cat 2 or Cat 3, but should remain out to sea, not really bothering anyone. Second least threatening would be Neoguri, which should be meandering to the northeast and weakening and staying out to sea. Next to least threatening, I'd say, is this North Atlantic disturbance here. It does have a 50% chance of development over the next 7 days. We could see live stream on that if it threatens the Leeward Islands or the Greater Antilles or parts of Bermuda, or even the eastern United States. Gabrielle, expected to become a Cat 4, or Cat 3 or Cat 4, excuse me, and then impact the Azores Islands. So they could get impacts from a tropical storm or near hurricane. There's a disturbance in the North Atlantic here with a 20% chance of development. Both of these disturbances could increase in their chances of formation. Now, getting to the more serious systems, 98B could briefly become a tropical cyclone over western India. Depending on how big of a rain threat it is, we may get an update based on that storm. 92W should definitely see updates on that storm as it nears the Philippines, and then eventually onto Vietnam and China. Ragasa will definitely see an update tomorrow evening on that storm, or tomorrow morning for you all in the Philippines. So expect the next live stream to be tomorrow morning, probably at around 10 o'clock would be my guess. In fact, I'm going to see what time is actually the best to do the live stream. Yeah, it seems like 10 o'clock or so. 9 to 10 was the best time, and then it starts dropping off. So maybe I'll do it earlier. We'll see. And then beyond that, we'll be seeing a stream probably for the landfall in Hong Kong and China, stuff like that. But for right now, this was just a landfall coverage for the system. Again, brief overview on the system. Expected to remain a Cat 5 for a while. Could deliver a major blow to parts of Guangdong province and Hong Kong. But with that, that will be it. Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next update. Stay safe.